Chapter 320, Investigating. Chapter 320, Investigating. Editor. As soon as Yi Tianmo had retrieved his soul, the 5 devils stopped chasing after it. They didn't get out of the sea of consciousness and restfully stayed inside. Shi Yang still maintained his strange motionless posture as if he was in some sort of a trance. Although his sea of consciousness was still vibrating, his breath was normal. Except for the fact that all of his profound qi had been entirely lost even though his body didn't have any abnormalities. Yi Tianmo's face displayed a little surprise and became heavier after having retrieved his soul. How was it? Kaba and Ya Meng asked at the same time with suspicious faces. There are some problems. Yi Tianmo stretched his hand, placing it on Shi Yang's hand, transmitting the profound qi into his body. The profound qi, like sensitive, subtle fibers, slowly flew around inside Shi Yang's vessels within his chest and gradually spread out all over his body. However, when Yi Tianmo's profound qi circulated to Shi Yang's right arm, it encountered layer upon layers of obstacles. The profound qi that he had released was somehow being blocked by numerous walls, making it impossible to penetrate inside. Yi Tianmo's profound qi continued being transmitted, groping along the vessels to spread out all over Shi Yang's body. Except for his right arm, other places inside his body was ventilated and uncluttered. As he had figured this out, Yi Tianmo thought for a while before continuing transmitting several more of the profound qi fibers toward Shi Yang's right arm. 7 flows of the profound qi scattered and busted in the invisible walls at the same time. Boom! A deep explosive sound reverberated from inside Shi Yang's arm. The dark purple lights were moving on his arm. In that strange vibration, Yi Tianmo's profound qi that had just stormed in exploded and was completely swallowed up, leaving no trace. Shi Yang's arm shot out a flow of peculiar aura toward Yi Tianmo's hand. Yi Tianmo's face changed in fear. He quickly retracted his hand and slightly shouted, "It's strange." Ya Meng and Kaba was astounded and urgently asked, "Old Yi, what happened?" "Nothing." Yi Tianmo released a sigh and helplessly said, "It appears that I couldn't wake Master up. I don't know why his current symptom is similar to possessed by the devil. However, after thinking more carefully, it doesn't seem right. Perhaps due to some secret technique cultivation, he has turned to be like this." After listening to Yi Tianmo, Ya Meng and Kaba didn't say anything further. Ya Meng's and Kaba's knowledge of the different kinds of forces were not as profound as Yi Tianmo's. Thus, they knew that they couldn't really help or give any input. The 3 of them were contemplating, looking at Shi Yang with their knitted eyebrows. They felt helpless right now as they had no solution for this situation. Xia Xinyan, Yi Zhongfeng, and Lin Yaqi had been waiting for Shi Yang for a long time but still didn't see Shi Yang show up yet. Thus, they couldn't help but go and look for him. As soon as they entered the room, seeing Shi Yang's stiff body on the ground, they all screamed out terrifyingly. The 3 people of Yi Tianmo stood around Shi Yang, preventing anyone from coming closer. Even Xia Xinyan was stopped as well. Xia Shenchuan also arrived right after he had been informed about this. He strangely looked at Shi Yang before looking at the 3 people who were standing around him while asking suspiciously, "What happened?" Yi Zhongfeng, Lin Yaqi, and Cao Zhilan were also full of doubts. Shi Yang had been still fine the previous day. How could he have become like this just after one night? No one could explain. "We came here this morning and had found him in this unconscious state. It was like possessed by devil state." After coldly harumphing, Yi Tianmo told them the truth about what had happened. "I have searched Master's soul and detected nothing abnormal except that the profound qi of his entire body seems to have been completely drained. It is like he has consumed all of his strength after fighting with someone." "How is it possible?" Xia Shenchuan was surprised. "This place was very quiet last night. There was no fight for sure. Is it true that he was possessed by the devil?" Although everyone was worried, they were not very anxious as they saw that Shi Yang was still breathing, and his heartbeat was still normal. However, it was certainly not a good thing if he couldn't wake up. As Yi Tianmo had admitted his helplessness, everyone else also kept their mouths shut. "Let me try." After contemplating for a while, Yi Zhongfeng suddenly spoke up. "Although I don't know what happened to him, With my knowledge of the possessed by the devil state, perhaps I can figure out something. Yi Tianmo tightly knitted his eyebrows. Xie Shengchuan's eyebrows were also slamming together. Everyone knew that Shi Yang and Yi Zhongfeng met each other not that long ago, and thus they couldn't be considered as having a close relationship. If Yi Zhongfeng had some wicked intentions and wanted to take this chance to kill Shi Yang would have no other ways except for death. No one had nodded yet, as everyone was carefully considering it. Let him try. As we have many people, even if he has bad intentions, he will not be able to do it. At the critical point of time, Xie Xinyan spoke up, it is still better than wasting time. If Shi Yang is really in the possessed by the devil state, we have to come up with a solution quickly. Is this guy really from the dark magnetic noxious mist? Yi Tianmo asked Xie Shengchuan after considering for a while. The previous night, the three people of Yi Tianmo's group had had some talks with Xie Shengchuan and gotten some information related to Yi Zhongfeng. The three of them especially paid attention to the center land of the Grace mainland behind the dark magnetic noxious mist. From the talk with Xie Shengchuan, Yi Tianmo had known that Xie Shengchuan was the master of the Xie family, and he had also had a feeling that Xie Shengchuan could have provided him with some useful information. During the conversation with the three people of Yi Tianmo's group, Xie Shengchuan had been surprised as well. As he had remembered the fact that Yi Zhongfeng and Lin Yaqi had suddenly appeared out of nowhere, he had told Yi Tianmo what he knew. The three people of Yi Tianmo's group clearly paid close attention to this. They had asked many questions about Yi Zhongfeng and even had the intention that they would have had to question Yi Zhongfeng more in person later. That's right. He has said it himself. Xie Shengchuan nodded. The eyes of the three leaders of the demonic sound clan, Yi Tianmo, Ya Meng, and Kaba brightened up, simultaneously looking at Yi Zhongfeng. Does the center of the Grace mainland have a place whose name is the Heaven Yin Ancient Mound? Yi Tianmo took a deep breath before asking. Yi Zhongfeng's and Lin Yaqi's faces changed dramatically. You know about the Heaven Yin Ancient Mound? A heaven light seemed to flare up in Yi Zhongfeng's eyes. The Heaven Yin Ancient Mound is one of the three dead territories. It is very famous as well as mystical. It has been said that the Heaven Yin Ancient Mound has always been sealed and that no one could enter. How could you know of that place? After the three people of Yi Tianmo's group threw him a quick look, they quietly nodded, indicating that they had confirmed Yi Zhongfeng's identity. You can try now. Don't do anything stupid. Yi Tianmo didn't reply Zhe Zhongfeng's question. Instead, he just gave a narrow access and told Yi Zhongfeng, be careful. Don't use the soul to approach his sea of consciousness. Otherwise, the soul that you release will not be able to come back. Moreover, the abnormal thing in his body was on his right arm. If you want to search, aim for that target. Yi Zhongfeng gazed at him and asked again, how can you know about the Heaven Yin Ancient Mound? From the ancestors' scripture. Yi Tianmo replied after contemplating for a while. Yi Zhongfeng's eyes brightened, carefully looking at the three of them. He seemed to have figured out something, but he didn't say anything further. He walked over and stayed next to Shi Yang. After that, he stretched out his hand holding Shi Yang's arm. A fireball suddenly shot out from Yi Zhongfeng's palm. The flames were like many scales covering his palm and the back of his hand. In just a blink, Yi Zhongfeng's hand now looked like it was wearing a yellow glove. The flames kept dancing non-stop as if there was a life joyfully cheering on his hand. The faces of the three people of Yi Tianmo's group turned chalky white. They couldn't help but take a few steps backward and hoarsely screamed out loud with astonishment, Heaven Flame! The three people Cao Zhilan, Xie Xinyan, and Xie Shengchuan also quickly moved backwards in shock as they were scared that the Heaven Flame would touch them. No worries, I can perfectly control this Heaven Flame. I won't let its heat affect anyone. The faces of the three leaders of the demonic sound clan were not quite good. They urgently used their powers to check and realized that there was no heating aura of the Heaven Flame in the room. They were secretly surprised and were strangely looking at Yi Zhongfeng. The Heaven Flame's heat was incredibly terrifying. Being able to release the Heaven Flame and oppress all of its aura at the same time, Yi Zhongfeng had clearly reached the exceptionally marvelous realm in using the Heaven Flame. They understood that Yi Zhongfeng was much better than Shi Yang in terms of using and controlling the heaven flame. Cao Zhilan was frightened. Her beautiful eyes were full of astonishment while she secretly guessed Yi Zhongfeng's status. On the contrary, as Xie Shenchuan and Xie Xinyan had already known Yi Zhongfeng's identity as well as the mystery of the dark magnetic noxious mist, they were not too surprised. Under everyone's attentive looks, Yi Zhongfeng closed his eyes, and several sparkling drops of water appeared on his white face that was even more beautiful than a girl's. His hand, which was holding Shi Yang's arm, was also slightly trembling as if he was consuming a big amount of power. Lin Yaqi was also surprised and a little bit puzzled when seeing Yi Zhongfeng being this exhausted. She clearly knew Yi Zhongfeng's ability more than anyone else. She thought that Yi Zhongfeng shouldn't have wasted too much strength with Shi Yang's strange possessed by the devil state. Instead, he only needed to sense a little to roughly know the current situation. However, she was a little bit shocked when seeing Yi Zhongfeng's reaction. She also looked at Shi Yang out of curiosity. More sweat had appeared on Yi Zhongfeng's face as he became more somber. He was still closing his eyes without saying anything. No one knew whether he had figured something out or not. In the room, everyone was silent, looking at Yi Zhongfeng and Shi Yang's abnormal state. Yi Tianmo's face changed all of a sudden. He lifted his face looking up and said with a cold face, "That guy is here again." Ya Meng's and Kaba's eyes became chillingly cold. They quickly sat down, releasing their souls to form a soul defensive formation which prevented that guy from penetrating. "You guys shouldn't use the soul consciousness nor get out of this circle." Yi Tianmo's face was severely serious. His 5 fingers shot out many peculiar beams of light, creating a dome of light on the ground covering everyone inside of it. After finishing the arrangement, Yi Tianmo also sat down, closed his eyes, preparing to fight against the enemy. Chapter 321, The Mutant Martial Spirit. Chapter 321, The Mutant Martial Spirit. Editor. In the room, the 3 people of Yi Tianmo's group were sitting in 3 different directions surrounding Shi Yang. Yi Zhongfeng was in the middle, and the other people were beside him, remaining alerted with somber faces. Cao Zhilan and Xie Xinyan stopped opposing each other. Instead, they both raised their heads up looking toward the sky and were carefully watching around. Only Lin Yaqi was leisurely. She took out a purple headscarf on which the image of clouds was embroidered. The clouds seemed to have several kinds of plants embroidered inside it as well. Putting the headscarf on, Lin Yaqi was even more comfortable, deliberately looking east to west. As soon as she put on the headscarf, the clouds on it started moving slowly, and the plants inside the clouds began to grow miraculously and quickly spread out the entire headscarf in a blink. Those plants rapidly emitted a strange flow of spiritual power that produced many peculiar circles of light wrapping around Lin Yaqi's head and eventually covering her entire body. Those circles of light swayed and wiggled before flying up to the sky. They then stopped at the place where the soul defensive formation of the 3 people of Yi Tianmo's group had condensed earlier. Sacred Level Secret Treasure. Cao Zhilan's beautiful face was full of astonishment while she was glancing at the purple headscarf on Lin Yiqi's head. She said with a gentle voice, "It is also the sacred level secret treasure of the soul defensive type. It is really surprising indeed." Xie Xinyan's and Xie Shenchuan's eyes were glowing while they quietly nodded their heads. No wonder why this girl didn't seem to worry at all. It turned out that she had the sacred level secret treasure of the soul defensive type. She obviously didn't need to be worried at all when holding that kind of treasure in her hand. There were a few of the sacred level secret treasures in the Endless Sea, and all of them were in the hands of the most powerful forces of the Endless Sea. The sacred level secret treasures was always the most precious value of each sect. It could sometimes be even more valuable than the God Realm warriors themselves. All of the sacred level secret treasures were in the God Realm warriors' hands, and only the God Realm warriors were able to make the most use of those treasures' powers, as well as protecting and keeping them safe. The sacred level secret treasure could be transmitted throughout many generations. It was seemingly unable to be destroyed, and thus, its value could be sometimes higher than that of the God Realm warriors. Currently, although Lin Yaqi was still ranked at the peak Earthrealm, she already possessed a sacred level secret treasure. Xie Shunchuan and Cao Zilan were terrified when they kept thinking about this. They couldn't imagine how powerful her old master's ability could be. Xie Xinyan was certain that the person who offered a sacred-level secret treasure to another one was definitely an extremely powerful one. Creak, creak, creak. Some peculiar sounds came up from the roof of the house. Everyone raised their heads up and realized that the roof was being oppressed by layer upon layer of ripples and would explode soon. The dazzling light suddenly flared up while different kinds of soul powers intertwined in the air, which brought other people a feeling that those souls were about to break. It was terrifying. Even Xie Xinyan and Cao Zilan, the future masters of the Endless Sea, didn't seem to be able to endure it. Under the waves of energy, the buzzing noise resounded in their heads that seemed like it was going to explode very soon. That was still taking place given the situation where the three people of Yi Tianmo's group had already set up the Soul Defensive Formation. If the Soul Defensive Formation hadn't been created by the unity of the three people of Yi Tianmo's group above their heads, the people under that formation should have been crushed by that tremendous soul power until their souls scattered and perished. Until now, only Lin Yaqin was unharmed. With the effects of the purple headscarf, she wasn't affected at all. She kept shifting her eyes from here to there, even showed a little of the boringness as if she didn't know what was happening above their heads. The faces of the three people of Yi Tianmo's group were terrifyingly somber. Their minds had never been as concentrated as this moment. With their soul cultivation realm, they certainly would not lose to this intruder in a one-on-one battle. Yi Tianmo could even be a little bit stronger. However, they had to be more careful this time as there were many people in the room. The purpose of the three of them was not only to resist the enemy's soul attacks but also to assure the other people's safety, which was their number one priority. That was why they were encumbered and had to spare a part of their soul powers to arrange many layers of the soul defense to protect Shi Yang and the others from being harmed. Because they had used the majority of their powers in defense, they obviously couldn't concentrate all of their soul powers to launch any other kinds of powerful attacks. Boom! The roof of the house exploded. In the middle of 5 colored soul dots of light, many peculiar light circles from Lin Yaqi's headscarf suddenly condensed into an entity and then turned into thin curtains of light that restrained the soul powers striking from above. Leave the defense to me. You guys focus on dealing with that fellow. Lin Yaqi was a little impatient. She couldn't help but shout, "No worries. He won't be able to break my sacred-level secret treasure. You can comfortably combine all of your powers to fight." The eyebrows of the three of them slightly arched, which indicated that they were about to launch the full power attacks. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Numerous rays appeared. Tens of thousands of light soul beams twisted together and crushed the opponent's soul in just a few seconds. Scattering soul dots of light which resulted from their fight were blocked by the curtains of light that had been emitted from Lin Yaqi's headscarf. Many flows of soul aura quickly disappeared. Lin Yaqi raised her head up looking towards the sky for a while before retrieving her headscarf and mumbling, "That stealthy bastard is annoying. He deserves bad luck." Phew. Yi Tianmo slightly exhaled, slowly opened his eyes, and said with a somber look, "His soul got injured this time. It will not recover in a short time. He probably won't dare to come here again." Ya Meng and Kaba opened their eyes wide with elated faces and kept on grinning. The cultivation base of those three people was not inferior to that of the opponent. If it weren't because they had been distracted in protecting the other people, that fellow wouldn't have dared to break in. Even if the fellow had calculated it by hook, he would have never expected Lin Yaqi to be present here, and more importantly that she had the peculiar sacred-level secret treasure. Thanks to this secret treasure, Lin Yaqi had freed the three people of Yi Tianmo's group from the encumbrance, helping them in being able to launch their full power attacks and seriously harm the opponent. Boom! While everyone was excited, the purple light on Shi Yang's right arm noisily exploded all of a sudden. The violently intense lights created many flows of power like ocean waves that massively spread out with the tremendous aura that could even wash mountains away. Yi Zhongfeng's skinny body was struck away, breaking through 3 layers of walls before falling in the middle of the garden. At the same time, Shi Yang's sea of consciousness was suddenly shaken, his host's soul slightly trembled. He also opened his eyes. Shi Yang's eyes were somehow in a daze, looking at the people surrounding him. He asked with astonishment, "What are you guys doing?" Cough, cough. In the middle of the garden, Yi Zhongfeng constantly dry coughed before standing up. His face was pale with a trickle of blood gushing out from the corner of his mouth. He took the pellet while walking over and miserably speaking, "Shi Yang, you've made me injured, you have to be responsible for this." Lin Yaqin astonishingly asked while her face changed dramatically, "Little Bai, are you injured?" Yi Zhongfeng awkwardly nodded. "Ha ha ha, interesting." Lin Yaqi wasn't worried. Instead, she clapped her hands and gloatingly said, "That's fantastic. It's not easy to see you get injured. It is interesting when you are injured, although you have many secret treasures on your body. Little rascal, you are dangerous indeed. You could even get Little Bai injured. Good, very good. Your ability seems to have proved that you are qualified enough to fight against a Nirvana Realm warrior. As far as I have known, the first sky of the Nirvana Realm warrior even has to take risks to be able to harm Little Bai." After hearing what she had just said, other people couldn't help but be surprised, shockingly looking at Shi Yang, and then Yi Zhongfeng. According to Lin Yaqi, Yi Zhongfeng's ability was even more terrifying than that of a Nirvana Realm warrior. With the Heaven Flame, together with many secret treasures, and his shocking ability, this guy was indeed a monster. What happened? Shi Yang knitted his eyebrows. "It is like this." Yi Tianmo seriously told him about what had happened before asking, "What happened to you last night?" "According to your assumption, I have accidentally encountered the possessed by the devil while cultivating." Shi Yang shuddered but remained calm while speaking. While talking, he quietly transmitted the spirit power to his right arm and realized that each muscle fiber in his right arm was flooded with some kind of strange powers. These powers stayed hidden in each of his muscle fibers, and it was not easy to detect them unless he used his spirit power. It was unknown why his right arm also became so abnormally heavy that he could hardly move it. Meanwhile, his left arm was still fine. As soon as he effortlessly swung it up, the mirage appeared right away. After quietly sensing for a while, he frighteningly realized that the weight difference between the left and the right hand was not only 100 times. His face turned pale with fear inside his heart when he bewilderedly and shockingly looked at his right arm. He remembered clearly that before he had been unconscious, 639 muscles on his body had been shaking non-stop. This kind of tremor had spread out all over his body, flooding into his sea of consciousness and his host soul, and then constantly agitated his entire body. In this kind of state, the mystical power and his entire body's profound qi converged together and absorbed into his right hand, fusing with the muscles there to form some kind of peculiar transformation. Currently, when this transformation had ended, his right arm was now overwhelmed with the mighty refined power, which also caused the weight increase and the difficulty in the movements of this arm. After all, was this good or bad? It's not the possessed by the devil state. While Shi Yang was still thinking with his strange face, Yi Zhongfeng suddenly spoke up. Under other people's astonished eyes, he smiled and confirmed, "That is the mutant martial spirit." Everyone's faces changed. The martial spirit's mutation was extremely complicated. Its rate was microscopic, and ordinary people hardly noticed it. Even the people who had experienced it didn't know that they had already undergone the transforming process of the anomalous martial spirit. There had ever been many tales about the martial spirit's mutation, including its mystery or unpredictability. However, no one knew why or how the martial spirit mutated, nor were they able to control this kind of mutation. Normally, the martial spirit's mutation only occurred in a specific phenomenal circumstance. No one possibly knew of this mutation before it actually happened and couldn't stop it while it was happening. After the mutation, the martial spirit transformed irregularly and marvelously. That was the special feature of the mutant martial spirits. The martial spirit's mutation was not something fun to the warriors. The martial spirit's mutation wasn't a good thing to many of them. Let's take the Flora martial spirit as an example. Before the mutation, while fighting with other people, one would immediately have an advantage as long as they were in a luxuriant and verdant forest. They could even rely only on the martial spirit to be able to control trees and plants to wrap and squeeze their enemies to death without the use of their forces. However, after the martial spirit mutated, the ability to control plants might disappear, and the fighting strength might also dramatically decrease, except for the remaining ability to foster and nourish trees and plants. A lot of martial spirits were very dangerous before the mutation but were clearly weakened after the mutation. However, nothing was absolute. There were also some cases where the martial spirits became stronger after the mutation, which enhanced its intimidation. This probability always existed, just much lower than the chances that the martial spirits got weakened. Therefore, everyone's faces remarkably changed when they heard that Shi Yang's martial spirit had just mutated, as they all assumed that was the bad mutation, especially when this kind of martial spirit's mutation had caused Shi Yang's profound qi to have been completely consumed. That made other people more anxious. Although I don't know how this kind of martial spirit's anomaly will develop, I am sure that the mutation has occurred. It's just I still don't know whether it will continue happening or not. Yi Zhongfeng looked at Shi Yang with a complicated face and said, as this mutation prevents you from gathering the profound qi, it might not give you many chances to be able to break through, and thus, the mutation will probably happen in the bad direction. After hearing what he had said, the three people of Yi Tianmo's group and Xia Xinyan were even more worried. Everyone knew what it meant when being unable to gather the profound qi. A warrior who couldn't gather the profound qi was not a warrior anymore. Having no profound qi meant having no source of strength. A warrior without profound qi was not different from an ordinary person. That was the fatal strike for a warrior. Xia Shunchuan's and other people's faces dramatically changed with fear while they confusingly looked at Shi Yang. Would a top future master of the Endless Sea become an ordinary person just because of the martial spirit's mutation? Everyone had the same thought. Xia Xinyan was broken-hearted and kept on sighing. Her heart was full of sorrowful innermost feelings, but she didn't know what to say. Shi Yang's face became heavy, and his eyebrows slammed together. He sat down cross-legged without saying a word. After taking a deep breath, Shi Yang held his breath, concentrating his mind to make another attempt in condensing the profound qi. As long as he could condense the profound qi, it meant that the tragic case was not happening. As everyone saw him sitting down, they were all quiet and anxiously waited for the result. Chapter 322, Understanding People's Heart. Chapter 322, Understanding People's Heart. Editor. Shi Yang was silent while his face looked a little odd. He was still quietly condensing the sky and earth aura without saying a word. The three people of Yi Tianmo's group, Yi Zhongfeng, and others had scattered further away from him, surrounding and watching him in silence. A beam of regret and disappointment flickered in the eyes of the four people Yi Zhongfeng, Cao Zhilan, Lin Yhe, and Xia Shunchuan, as if they were watching Shi Yang falling into a deep abyss from the god position in the sky. Because of this mutation, he would probably lose his will and hardly break through the next realm. Xia Xinyan's face looked calm, but her heart was actually agitated. She didn't dare to imagine that if Shi Yang couldn't condense the sky and earth aura, how the situation would be. When he lost his body strength completely and became an ordinary person, she wasn't sure if he could stand it, given his haughtiness. Yi Tianmo, Kobo, and Yue Meng were even more anxious. They had served Shi Yang as their master, betting the future of the demonic Sound Clan on him. If Shi Yang became an ordinary person, they would be lashed for this. Under the other people's scrutinizing eyes, Shi Yang closed his eyes, attentively condensing the sky and earth aura. The black head lotus tattoo on his chest started exerting its effect, gathering the sky and earth aura around him, creating a flow of the spiritual aura pouring into his chest. After condensing a little bit and being controlled by his spirit, this flow of aura flowed along the vessels toward the beam of profound qi light on his belly. This beam of profound qi light was the fist-sized tornado-like type. When Shi Yang sent his spirit into it, he realized that its interior was empty, not a single profound qi nor the marvelous ancient profound qi tree remained. Only the nihility existed there. Previously, the first step of the cultivating process was to gather the sky and earth aura, which would be refined and condensed by the tornado on his belly to transform into the feeble profound qi that then poured into the center of the tornado and converged at the beam of profound qi light. However, this time was different. After the sky and earth aura had poured into that tornado, the whirling speed was enhanced rapidly. But after a while, The sky and earth aura which had just poured into the tornado disappeared again as if it had swirly diffused and gotten out through the pores on the belly instead of being condensed and transformed into the purified profound chi. Xiang was worried but not hopeless. He continued condensing and refining the profound chi. However, the result was still the same. After he had condensed the sky and earth aura and poured them into the tornado, during the spinning time, the tornado threw out all the aura that had just been poured in. As the profound chi was gone, the tornado also slowed down and eventually was motionless like a dead pond. His mood gradually sank into the bottom of the glass as his face became grimaced. When the three people of Yi Tianmo's group saw his gloomy face, they were worried if he could endure this fatal shock or not. It seems this martial spirit's anomaly has stopped you from being able to gather the profound chi. If so, you have no profound chi to use. Yi Zhongfeng slightly released a sigh and regretfully said, without the profound chi, you cannot be considered a warrior. Such a pity. Cao Zhilan's charming face slightly changed. Her beautiful eyes gazed at Xiang complicatedly for a moment while she was thinking about not to build up the relationship with Xiang anymore. Due to this mutation, her previous romantic interest in him had been restrained reasonably. Such a regret. Cao Zhilan quietly thought as her picturesque eyebrows knitted tightly. Her mind was considering the relation with Xiang's group. She felt that giving her lifetime happiness in Xiang's hands right now was extremely unwise. Therefore, she decided to leave Xiang, giving up her initial choice. Xie Shunchuan was frustrated. In fact, Cao Zhilan's and his way of thinking were similar. He considered Xiang the future master of the Yang family who could surpass Yang Tian Emperor one day to become the most admirable warrior in the Endless Sea. He had felt that Xiang could help the Xie family regain the top position. Regretfully, the entire plan had been thwarted by the mutation of Xiang's martial spirit. It was no longer practical. However, his intention was different from Cao Zhilan's. He didn't decide to stay away from Xiang. Instead, he wanted to advise and comfort him in the hope of Xiang could pull himself together and wouldn't easily collapse because of this upheaval. It's all right, Xie Xinyan was still smiling, looking at Xiang and then gently said, I believe that you will recover. At least, you will still have a chance to start all over again. Xiang's face was toneless like a rock. However, after hearing Xie Xinyan words, he felt moved and regained some hope. That's right. At most, he will start everything over again. As he first came here, his body was just ordinary and nothing special anyway. Thanks to the mystery martial spirits effect, his body had gained a little of profound chi. After a long time of hardships and striving, together with the help of the mystery martial spirit, he had reached the peak Earth realm in just a short time. Presently, although he couldn't gather and condense the profound chi, he was still able to use the forces in his meridians. Moreover, his sea of consciousness had been formed, many secrets still stayed hidden in his body, his rings still contained and controlled the ice-cold flame, the 10,000-year earth flame, and the 9 serenities soul-devouring flame. All those things could provide him with strength. As long as he used them well, he would not be worse than before. Moreover, nobody was sure that his current incident of impossibly gathering the profound chi could not be cured. He vaguely felt that this incident was just temporary, which might have something related to the mutation of the mystery martial spirit. Waited until the mutation was over, he would restore his normal state. I am okay. I will think about this carefully. I perhaps will have a solution for it. A bunch of thoughts zoomed over in his head, but Xiang still forced a smile and remained his calm face, then said, I need time. Yeah, I believe you can recover. Xie Xinyan revealed a smile and said, I hope you are lucky enough. Yi Zhongfeng slightly shook his head, looking at Xiang with strange, meaningful eyes. The transformation caused by the mystery martial spirit's mutation is usually hard to recover. I just want to warn you in advance so that you can be well prepared. Moreover, if you want to find a way to fix this, your right arm should be the key. Xiang knitted his eyebrows but didn't say anything. Sure you are not in a good mood today. Yi Zhongfeng beamed a faint smile. I don't bother you anymore then. We will take a walk and buy some stuff in the auction of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland on the way. After a short pause, Yi Zhongfeng continued, I want to stay here tonight. Is it possible? Up to you, said Xiang. Anyway, there are many chambers here. Another 2 more people of you would not make it cramped. You can come if you want. That's good. Yi Zhongfeng nodded, signaling Lin Yhe, and then both of them left together. Shiyang, can you remove the formation technique in my soul? Cao Zhilan had contemplated for a long while before speaking up with a smile. I can rightfully hand out 5 islands of the Cao family as the ransom for my freedom. Is it okay? While she was talking, her storage ring suddenly flared up and a sheaf of papers emerged from her white hand. Cao Zhilan's smile was still beautiful, but it seemed to lack something. After giving Shiyang those papers, she gently retracted her hand and said, "Those 5 islands all have mineral mines and exceptional auras, which are not inferior to those of the Jiyu family. What do you think?" From Cao Zhilan's manners and tone, Shiyang obviously understood why she had that kind of deeds. He secretly smirked within his heart and emotionlessly said, "Possible." Upon his words, Shiyang regarded Yi Tianmo with complicated eyes and said, "Can I ask for your help?" The 3 people of Yi Tianmo's group remained their calm faces and gravely nodded to Shiyang. They didn't change their attitude toward Shiyang just because of his body's mutant transformation. Shiyang was a little bit assured after seeing their attitude. He then said with a sarcastic tone, "Remove the formation technique for her, set her free. My current situation cannot afford to keep that dangerous slave." Cao Zhilan's long eyelashes slightly shivered while she was looking at Shiyang with a complicated visage. After a while, she released a sigh and said, "Shiyang, although there is no more chance between you and me, I still have to say that you are the only man who has ever moved me. Regretfully, we are not meant to be together." Sigh. The 3 people of Yi Tianmo's group bowed, sending their souls into her brain altogether. Just after a short while, as soon as a noise resounded in Cao Zhilan's brain, her soul has been freed from the control of the formation technique. "I hope you don't lose your will. Take care of yourself." Cao Zhilan looked at Shiyang, slightly released a sigh, and then glided away. Shiyang sneered with a mocking face but didn't say anything further. That woman is dangerous indeed, very decisive and straightforward. As soon as she has realized that things are going out of her plan, she immediately cuts off the bond, doesn't let herself get hurt. Xia Shunchuan watched Cao Zhilan's figure, contemplated for a while before speaking. She is very decisive even though she is still young. We cannot disdain this girl in the future. Although I don't like her, I have to admit that she is not easy to deal with. It is normal. Shiyang revealed a smile. As a lady from a big family, she has been fed with many thoughts of fights for power, and thus, she has never felt safe. Her wicked intentions are very big, so she needs to find a leverage force to carry on her dreams. When she has realized that I could not bring her what she wants, she decisively leaves me at once. I really admire her at this point. Why don't you have any discontent? Xia Xinyan was somehow astonished. It is not the first time I have encountered this, I have understood. Shiyang revealed a faint smile and said, "Not only do I understand the situation but I also know her very well. Everyone has different purposes. There is nothing wrong with choosing a better man for a better future. As long as she doesn't fish in the troubled water taking advantage of my current situation to do something bad, I have nothing to be discontented." "You have actually thought it through," Xia Sengchuan exclaimed. "Seeing you optimistic instead of disappointed and dispirited, I am now less worried. I just temporarily cannot gather and condense the profound qi. It doesn't mean that I'm going to die. So, it's useless to be frustrated." Shiyang dragged a smile out of the corner of his mouth. "Even when I don't have the profound qi, it is not sure that Nirvana realm warriors can defeat me." Xia Shengchuan was astonished. Chapter 323, Stay With You. Chapter 323, Stay With You. Editor. Yi Zhongfeng and Lin Yhe left the manor, heading to the sacred light mountain. They excitedly laughed and talked together on the way, didn't let Shiyang's mutant martial spirit affect their moods. "Little Bai, tell me if Shiyang will be discouraged because of the mutation of his martial spirit?" Lin Yhe asked with a regretful tone while watching the sunrise and then shifting her eyes to the sacred light mountain which was immersed in the morning light. "That guy's ability is not bad. It is such a pity if he cannot become a warrior just because of that mutant martial spirit." Yi Zhongfeng laughed out loud, dispiritedly waving the feather fan, and said sluggishly, "Why do you need to care about him? It is not easy to deal with that guy even when he doesn't use his profound chi. What can he do without the profound chi?" Lin Yhe was a little puzzled. Profound chi is the cultivating foundation of all warriors. No profound chi means no forces. Later on, either in fighting or doing something else, without profound chi, it is not good at all. He will not be like that. Yi Zhongfeng remained his normal face, dragging a strange smile out of the corner of his mouth. Although the profound chi in his body had vanished completely, I was still struck away when I was exploring his body. Don't you feel it was bizarre? After hearing what Yi Zhongfeng had said, Lin Yhe was astonished and suddenly recalled what had happened earlier. When Shiyang had fallen into the strange state, Yi Zhongfeng had explored Shiyang's body, but then had been struck away by the purple light on Shiyang's right arm, breaking through 3 rooms before falling into the garden. If Shiyang had lost his profound chi, what had he relied on to be able to knock Yi Zhongfeng away? The more Lin Yhe thought, the more suspicious she felt. As a result, she couldn't help but ask, does he have some transformation? He did have a little change. Yi Zhongfeng nodded with a smile and said, he will gradually get familiar with the new transformation of his body. If he understands his body well, he will still be a dangerous man even without the profound chi. Lin Yhe frighteningly sputtered, almost screamed out loud. Yi Zhongfeng beamed a faint smile and didn't explain anything further. He quickly walked toward the sacred light mountain. In the forest at the northwest of the Sun Island, pine trees formed a peculiar formation, which prevented souls from penetrating. Many flags hung up on the pine trees. Those flags had drawings of many toxic insects, which were very lively as if they were moving on the flags for real, giving people a devilish feeling. There was only one simple wooden house situated in the pine forest surrounded by rubble. Those pieces of stone seemed to be arranged accordingly to some kind of formation, forming a mysterious formation altogether. Chilling layers of smoke rolled up from that wooden house. The ambiguous mist of smoke brought along the strange aura which paralyzed people's nerves and dazed people's mind. Anyone who inhaled this aura would instantly be affected, unable to stand firmly. Crack, crack. A strange noise resounded from that wooden house. Inside the house, a person with unknown appearance was enclosed in a gloomy light, sitting on a wooden bed and slightly trembling. The bed also lurched accordingly, creating strange squeaks non-stop. It then collapsed eventually. When the wooden bed collapsed, that person also fell onto the pile of wood chips. The muddy grey light was still wrapping the body as before, which made people hardly see that person's real appearance. Rustling, rustling. As soon as the crisp sound of dried leaves arose from outside the house, the person who had just fallen instantly pulled himself together. The light gradually faded away, and thus, that person's appearance became clearer. That was a middle-aged man in a grey tunic with unfriendly appearance, grey-white beard and hair, an aquiline nose, long and thin eyebrows, thin lips, strict eyes, and dark skin. He gave people a cagey feeling. "Uncle," Dongfang's voice came up. He slightly called out and stood motionlessly outside the house, didn't dare to step inside. The person inside the house with cold and miasmal eyes gradually stood up, stepped out of the door, attentively looking ahead for a while before slightly snorted and called Dongfang, "Come in." Dongfang he walked inside then said, "I went over there yesterday. That little rascal didn't want to meet me. Even the 3 unidentified God Realm warriors didn't want it either. On the way, I met other people from other forces who also paid them a visit, and they were not an exception as all were rejected. I didn't see anyone who was allowed to step in their accommodation." Seeing the broken bed, Dongfang was very frightened but didn't show it on his face. He calmly told that person what had happened. "I have just come back from there by using the soul." His voice and eyes became sharp and cold. Those 3 God Realm warriors have exceptional soul accomplishment. I also saw that the little rascal Shiyang seems to have cultivated until falling into the possessed by the devil state. I was about to penetrate his consciousness to check but got hindered by the unity of those 3 people, which even harmed my soul. If it weren't that I had put forth all of my spiritual power into my soul, I perhaps wouldn't have gotten out of there alive. Dongfang's face suddenly changed, He couldn't help but scream in fear. How could it be? That person threw him a cold glance while his entire body emitted a bone-chilling aura. He said, "In this world, the number of people who have the profound understanding of the soul is countless. Those 3 people have impressed me very much in this terms. In the endless sea, except for young Yi Tian who has unreachable soul level, those 3 people have shocked me as well. I don't know where they are from and why they are willing to support the Yang family. Uncle, are they the remaining people of Yang Tian Emperor?" Dong Fanghe hesitated a little bit before speaking. Although Yang Tian Emperor has been confined in the demon area, everyone knows that the Yang family's ability is unfathomable. Those 3 people might have some relation to Yang Tian Emperor. Yang Tian Emperor, the man gritted his teeth while his face was full of envy, and his eyes were as sharp as an ice saber. It looked like Yang Tian Emperor was his archenemy. 3 years ago, Dongfang family's people arrived at the Kiara Sea and realized that there was not a sound from high-class warriors or pagans in the immortal island of the Yang family. All of them had disappeared. Although the immortal island and the Kiara Sea were occupied, the Yang family's forces did not suffer a great loss. If Yang Tian Emperor could escape from the capture, the Yang family could have still been as strong as before. Dongfang, he said with a low voice. They are absolutely not the remaining people of Yang Tian Emperor. The man revealed a cold smile, snorted then said, with his combative ambitions, if Yang Tian Emperor has 3 God Realm warriors in his hands, the Hengluo Sea and the Blackwater Sea should soon have become his territory, losing their freedom for a long time already. Dong Fanghe was surprised, carefully thought over about it, and then nodded. The meeting will start tomorrow. I will not expose myself anymore so that those 3 people couldn't detect me. The man was hesitant before instructing Dong Fanghe, you quickly investigate the identity of those 3 people, discover their relationship with the Yang family. Each of the forces here has their own plans and conspiracies, they don't have consensus. So, we should not let our guard down to avoid any mistakes. Martial Holy Palace doesn't seem to have any actions. Dong Fanghe nodded and replied. Yang Yi Tian should have his own plan. As he has invited us to the Sun Island, he should definitely know the situation of the Sun Island like the back of his hand. Zhongli Dun perhaps will show up at the meeting tomorrow. The man said while knitting his eyebrows. Zhongli Dun, Dong Fanghe mumbled suspiciously, is this guy who ranks the first on the power rankings valued that much? Yang Yi Tian also believes in him. He is still young after all. Is he capable enough so that Yang Yi Tian would let him have full control over this matter? That fellow is more dangerous than you think. The man coldly harumphed and continued, Yang Yi Tian has directly taught him martial arts for 10 years. He will definitely be one of the dominators of the Endless Sea. If Yang Yi Tian let him handle this matter, it means Yang Yi Tian believes in his ability. Dong Fanghe was astonished. It is said that ordinary Sky Realm warriors are not his opponents. The man said coldly. Dong Fanghe's face finally changed in fear. Shi Yang took the papers out of the blood vein ring and handed to Yi Tianmo while smiling, you temporarily take care of this stuff. The first sunbeam pierced through the window and the cracks on the stone wall caused by the soul fight at the previous night, lighting up the entire room. As the 3 people of Yi Tianmo's group didn't like the sunlight, they found the dark corners to stay while wearing gloomy faces. Shi Yang had asked Xia Shengchuan and Xia Xinyan to leave, so there were only Shi Yang and the 3 leaders of the demonic sound clan in the room. Master, what do you mean by saying it? A beam of light glimmered in Yi Tianmo's eyes while his face was a little unhappy. He didn't lift his hands to receive the papers. After chuckling to himself, Shi Yang kept pushing the papers toward Yi Tianmo and said, these papers are the ownership proof of some big islands in the seas. However, the main forces that have handed them to me might not comply with the covenants. Once the demon dweller's peril is solved, it is not sure that they will rest on their laurels. However, when the demon dweller's threat is still there, they will temporarily be patient, didn't dare to be rebellious. Yi Tianmo kept silent without uttering a word. I know your tribe has just arrived at the Endless Sea and you are still not familiar with the Grace Mainland. I also know that the demonic Sound Clan needs precious and rare materials for your cultivation, especially the spiritual pellets and the icy yin stones are essentially important to your cultivation base. Shi Yang talked to them naturally, You can seize the time to send your men to these islands and harvest the necessary things, preparing for the future. The 3 people of Yi Tian-mo's group still didn't open their mouths while their faces were getting more complicated. I originally wanted to take advantage of the major chaos in the Endless Sea to help you guys obtain enough resources before your return. Currently, the number of the islands in my hands is not many, but it's still better than nothing. You should quickly gather more valuable things on these islands and then prepare to leave this area. Before your soul scatters and perishes, you are still our master. After keeping silent for a long while, Yi Tian-mo then received those papers and stressed each word, even if we have to leave, we will leave with you. If you don't go, we will also stay with you. Ya Meng and Kaba immediately nodded. Chapter 324, The Strong Right Arm. Chapter 324, The Strong Right Arm. Great Lady. 3 Sky Realm warriors were standing in a chamber, respectfully conducting ceremony toward Cao Jilan. This chamber situated right at the foot of the sacred Light Mountain in a business quarter. This area was very bustling and animated with boisterous voices and many warriors from different places of the Endless Sea gathering here to find treasures they had desired. There was a small road at a hidden corner of the business quarter leading to a hatch where a path connected with this secret chamber under the ground. Those 3 Sky Realm warriors looked like 3 brothers, wearing the same coarse garments. Standing solemnly in the chamber, they looked like 3 imposing and intimidating mountains, emitting heavy auras. Ordinary warriors even found it hard to breathe when facing them. Those 3 people just had normal appearances, so if they mingled in the crowd, no one would ever notice them. Those 3 people were the protectors of the Cow family, who were seldom showed up in front of strangers and devoted in helping the Cow family do some dubious missions. You are all here. That's good. Cao Jilan was comfortably sitting on a chair, a halo flashed over her face, which could mesmerize other people. She knitted her eyebrows. Tell me about the latest situation of the family. The 3 warriors of the Cow family nodded, bent down, and started reporting on everything about the Cow family in recent years. Cao Jilan slightly closed her eyes while listening carefully. Waiting until those 3 people had finished, she then nodded. Everything is good, nothing is abnormal. So, the plan seems to be unchanged. The 3 of them all nodded with the respectful manners. This attitude truly came from inside their hearts, not just because of Cao Jilan's status. The 3 of you come here to protect me or to attend the meeting on the Sun Island as well? Cao Jilan emotionlessly asked with moderate speed. The main purpose is to accompany you back home. One of those 3 people bent down close to the ground, respectfully said, the Hengluosi is not safe anymore. Our master's intention is that we should temporarily not involve in the Hengluosi's matters. As we come here to see you, we also want to check how many forces are gathering here for the meeting on the same occasion. We actually don't want to join it. Cao Jilan gently nodded, seemed to know about this in advance. We have heard that Great Lady has been confined. Do you need us to go there? Another man stepped forward to ask for her instructions while a cold beam of light glinted in his eyes. No need. Cao Jilan coldly said. Great Lady, we have heard that you and the little rascal Shi Yang have seemingly had conflicts in the hot spring. Man Ji Yu has also had to show himself out and got defeated, suffering serious injuries. That man considered a little more carefully, then bent down even lower. Great Lady, you have never laid your eyes on anyone. Do you really want to involve in the relationship with that guy? Cao Jilan was silent, whining inside her heart. She contemplated for a while before standing up, shaking her head, and speaking up indifferently. In fact, I initially had that intention. However, I don't know what to think now. The mutation has happened to his martial spirits. Perhaps he will not be able to gather the profound chi for the rest of his life. His cultivation base has probably reached its limit. The other 3 people were astonished, then silently nodded, assuming that what Cao Jilan had done was obviously right. Sigh, Cao Jilan was a little melancholy. If it weren't because he could not gather his profound chi anymore, perhaps I would sincerely follow him. This man is indeed outstanding. If he could have maintained his strength as before, he would have had a big advancement and surpassed Zhong Lidun, becoming the most brilliant person in the Endless Sea. A beam of light suddenly glinted in the eyes of the three protectors of the cow family while they showed their disbelieving manners. I know how dangerous Zhong Lidun is. He has the Nirvana realm cultivation base, the well-known abstruse soul, as well as many martial techniques. Thus, he is always complimented as once-in-a-lifetime genius. Cao Zhilan slightly harumphed and continued, however, Shi Yang is not much inferior to him. Even my spirit god martial spirit couldn't check how many secrets he has. This man brings me a mysterious feeling. If it weren't for the mutant martial spirit, I would have longed for the day that he and Zhong Lidun fight against each other. Such a pity then. The three protectors of the cow family nodded. It's a pity indeed. Cao Zhilan blushed with embarrassment when suddenly thinking about how she had given him her first kiss on her own initiative. She thus kept silent without saying anything further. As Shi Yang has no value anymore, we perhaps should skip him and contact directly with the guys following him. The other person said. Very difficult, Cao Zhilan thought for a while before speaking. Considering the situation now, I feel that convincing those three pagans is not a simple matter. On the Snow Dragon Island, there are another terrifying God Realm pagan warriors as well. The three protectors of the cow family looked odd, screaming at the same time, 5 God Realm warriors? Cao Zhilan nodded with a strained smile. Yes, 5 God Realm warriors. This force is terrifyingly powerful. If it isn't so, I wouldn't have boldly stayed there for such a long time like that. Sigh, regretfully, he can't gather the profound chi. Maybe those pagans are also about to leave him. Do we need to send our men straight to the Snow Dragon Island to see the other 2 people? Yeah, we can try. I am not sure if we will succeed or not, but at least we should show them the cow family's good intentions. I think if Shi Yang just dies in silence, it will be easier for us to contact with those pagans. Cao Zhilan's eyes glimmered with a cold beam of light, stonily looking at the protector who had just spoken up. You better forget what you have just said. Not to mention the relation between Shi Yang and that pagan group, Yang Tian Emperor has not been killed just yet, so if Shi Yang is dead in your hands, you think how many people can you hide it from? You think you are a God Realm warrior? That protector's face dramatically changed while he obediently nodded non-stop, didn't dare to say another word. Don't think about killing Shi Yang. Don't bring troubles to the cow family anymore. Understand? Cao Zhilan snorted coldly. The three protectors quickly nodded, clearly showing that they were very scared of her. In another secret stone chamber, Shi Yang was sitting cross-legged on the ground with a gloomy face, knitting his eyebrows while looking at his right arm and thinking dolefully. He placed his right arm on a rock surface, looking at his rough arm, didn't recognize anything different from before. Afterward, when he closed his eyes, strange purple rays suddenly appeared from his eyes. After focusing his mind, he realized that those purple rays also stayed hidden in his muscles. He was thinking about the current situation where his right arm had become as rigid as iron and stone and was not different from being sculptured by a knife. This gave people an impetuous feeling. Mutant martial spirit, Shi Yang frowned and mumbled to himself, it should be because of that petrification martial spirit. But, how come this kind of mutation has happened? Why has it consumed all of my profound chi? He sat in the stone chamber and watched his body's transformation for half a day with many unanswered questions. He somehow could be certain that the transformation of his body happened due to the petrification martial spirit. He knew the evolvement process of the petrification martial spirit included 4 phases and every phase had a different shade from each other. At the first phase, the skin had the white-gray hue, and then, it would turn into the light brown at the second phase and green-yellow at the third phase. At the last phase, the skin would be purple. Besides the fact that different phases had different shades, the strength in each phase was also various. According to what he had known, only when the cultivation base entered the sky realm could the petrification martial spirit reach the 4th phase where the skin would turn to be purple. Of course, that process happened to the ordinary warriors only. Since Shi Yang's body had the support of the mystery martial spirit's power, his martial spirit could directly enter the 4th phase without requiring his cultivation base to reach the demanded realm. Presently, the petrification martial spirit was still in the 3rd phase. If he triggered his mind, urging the petrification martial spirit, most of the skin on his body would turn into green-yellow. However, the color of his right hand remained unchanged, which was its normal skin color. However, with a closer look, people could see a flow of purple light vaguely emerged from his right arm. From that phenomenon, he guessed the petrification martial spirit was about to enter the fourth phase. Right now, the Master Shijian of the Shi family only had the Nirvana realm cultivation base, and thus, the petrification martial spirit was only in the third phase. Until now, nobody in the Shi family had ever broken through the sky realm, so no one had cultivated the petrification martial spirit to the fourth phase. Nothing about this fourth phase had been mentioned or described in Xiang's memory, making him uncertain whether the current transformation of his body was normal or not, given that the petrification martial spirit was about to enter the fourth phase. His entire body had fossilized, being covered by a layer of green-yellow light. It was now stony and unbreakable. Meanwhile, although his right arm remained its original color, it became extremely heavy. It was already hard for him to move his right arm, and thus, if he had to engage in a fight now, this arm would definitely be troublesome for him, even causing his unsteady move. The reason was due to the heaviness of this arm. The weight difference between the left arm and right arm was more than 100 times. One of them was as light as nothing while the other one was as heavy as a mountain. The imbalance disturbed him very much. Dang it! Xiang used his strength to lift his right arm as high as possible. Without the help of the profound qi, this move was extremely slow. Until he could lift it over his head, sweat had already beaded on his forehead, and his back had also soaked in sweat. It looked like as if he had to lift a big mountain. Xiang understood that the reason he had been able to raise this arm over his head was that his body had gone through the extremely arduous cultivation, and thus his body's strength was much mightier than other ordinary warriors. Otherwise, it was unlikely to lift this arm up like this. Dang it! He got crazy and cursed. His right arm suddenly dropped. His fist was like a big club pounding heavily on the rock surface. The arm and the fist effortlessly dropped as quickly as lightning, bringing along the terrifying flow of purple light. Boom! The hard green rock now became a piece of tofu which had utterly been smashed. He didn't encounter any difficulties in doing so. His right arm was like an undefeatable drill that pierced through the green rock. At the same time, a peculiar, powerful force was transmitted, dragging the tremor of his body. This tremor was very familiar. Xiang's face changed after he had realized this vibration. He felt his right arm seemed to be about to explode. A crazy, terrifying power from his body was spreading to his arm, making him unable to stand it. Boom, boom. The explosive sounds suddenly reverberated from the ground under Xiang's feet, giving people a terrible feeling. Xiang was frightened while his dazed eyes gazed at his feet, seeing the ground rippling like sea waves. In the booming sounds, the green stone ground under his feet was heaving non-stop as if it was being destroyed by a major earthquake which had a magnitude of 7 or 8. The broken green stones turned into chalky putty that scattered everywhere. His right arm shot out many circles of purple light one by one, crushing all the green stones into ashes wherever it had passed through, devastating everything that blocked their way. Boom, boom, boom. Xiang's face changed dramatically when a deafening sound resounded. He wanted to withdraw his arm but realized that it was getting so heavy he failed to do so. Instead, his body was pulled down into that mess. Swoosh. His clothes were torn apart, scraps of fabric didn't fall on the ground but were attracted down by that arm. The noise of explosion still kept coming up while the chamber looked as if it was being devastated by the earthquake. The stone chamber was gradually falling into pieces, green stones scattered everywhere. After a while, Xiang was besieged in an area of 30 square meters by the broken rubble. He was wearing an eccentric face, looking at the big grave and then his right arm while a strange beam of light flashed up in his eyes. Master! The 3 people of Yi Tianmo's group appeared at his side like ghosts, looking at the grave with complicated faces. This is, Xia Shengchuan and Xia Xinyan also arrived. Looking at the ruined chamber, they showed a suspicious look on their faces. You did it. Xia Shengchuan hesitated a little bit before glancing at Yi Tianmo. Yi Tianmo shook his head. So, who did this then? Xia Shengchuan raised his head, shifting his look to Ye Meng and Kobo and asked again, You too? Ye Meng and Kobo were bewildered, constantly shaking their heads. Thus, everyone turned their heads around, looking at Shi Yang with strange eyes, together with the astonished, unbelievable look on their faces. I don't know what has happened either. Under the scrutinizing eyes of other people, Shi Yang shook his head, strangely looking at his right arm and mumbling, "The mutant martial spirit not only prevents me from gathering the profound chi but also makes me become like this." Chapter 325, Regain the Trust. Chapter 325, Regain the Trust. Yi Zhongfeng and Lin Yaqi came back to the manor at dusk. Both of them were startled seeing the big crater. The crater was 7 or 8 meters deep with rubble heaping up together. Everything had clearly been smashed into ashes by some force. Yi Zhongfeng squinted, assuming and considering the possibility. It seems that a fight has just occurred in this place. According to the current scene, it is certainly the masterpiece which has been caused by a Nirvana realm warrior with his secret treasure. After having a quick glance, Lin Yaqi was a little disappointed. "If I have known about this, I would have stayed here instead of having gone to that boring auction of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland. Nothing there could attract me." Yi Zhongfeng dragged a smile out of the corner of his mouth, shaking his head. "I don't think a Nirvana realm warrior has caused this crater. According to my guess, this crater should be created by that guy Shi Yang. Unexpectedly, things already became like this just after one day." "What?" Lin Yaqi kicked the gravel on the ground, frowned, and said with disbelieving tone, "Not sure. Can't he gather the profound chi? You have said that his right arm has strength, but given the situation where he cannot use his profound chi and just relies on his right arm's strength, how can he make such a terrible destruction like this?" "You have underestimated him," Yi Zhongfeng said with a serious face. "He was much more dangerous than you think. This guy is bizarre. The aura on his body is also a little peculiar. Even though he temporarily cannot gather the profound chi, it is still not easy for ordinary people to deal with him." Lin Yaqi was still doubtful. Yi Zhongfeng walked to Shi Yang's chamber without saying anything further. There were only Shi Yang and the 3 people of Yi Tianmo's group in the room, discussing something with each other in a low voice. After Yi Zhongfeng and Lin Yaqi had entered, Shi Yang immediately stopped the discussion with the other 3 people, raised his head looking at Yi Zhongfeng, then spoke up. "How was the auction?" "Don't mention it." Yi Zhongfeng released a disappointed sigh. "At first, I have had some respect toward this Spirit Treasure Wonderland, thinking that they could have displayed some real precious treasures. However, nothing was valuable there. It is such a waste of my mind to have been worried and prepared money for this. It was boring." Lin Yaqi pouted her mesmerized red lips. "Maybe because your demands are too high, everything then becomes ordinary in your eyes. Something which is valuable in others' eyes may have no value in your eyes." Yi Zhongfeng had the heaven flame, and Lin Yaqi possessed the sacred level treasure. As both of them came from the dark magnetic noxious mist, they were obviously richer than most of the young successors in the Endless Sea. Their master should be even wealthier than them, and thus, the eyes of his disciples were apparently different from other people's, and their demands were extremely high. Therefore, they hadn't found the treasures that the Spirit Treasure Wonderland had displayed interesting and valuable. Yi Zhongfeng seemed to understand the reason. He slightly grinned, nodded, and said, "It should probably be that reason. This manor has many vacancies. You can freely choose one among them. I can't help you with this." Shi Yang contemplated for a while before speaking to Yi Zhongfeng. "As to our cooperation, you should think about it more carefully. With my current situation, I am not much of help." Yi Zhongfeng was a little bit surprised, then comfortably laughed. "Are you saying that your heaven flame is currently not the same as before because of your inability to gather the profound chi?" Shi Yang nodded. "It's all right." Yi Zhongfeng looked very easygoing without any hesitation. "I don't think so, anyway. If an ordinary person cannot gather the profound chi, they might have a lot of difficulties in controlling the heaven flame. You are different though. Even if you cannot gather the profound chi forever, I think you still can control the heaven flame easily." Lin Yaqi's eyes suddenly brightened up. The 3 people of Yi Tianmo's group were a little puzzled. Shi Yang knitted his eyebrows but didn't say anything. "Because the relationship between you and the heaven flame is not normal," Yi Zhongfeng continued with a stern face, The way I control my heaven flame is that I temporarily remove its consciousness and forcefully occupy it. When I control it, I always have to be cautious with the possibility of its counterattack. Once my force cannot tyrannize over it, it will regain its consciousness and incinerate me into ashes. The saying fire is a good servant but a bad master can be applied in my case. Shiyang quietly nodded as he knew the method of controlling the heaven flame of the corpse's god sect is the same with the one of Yi Zhongfeng. You are different though, Yi Zhongfeng revealed a faint smile. Although I don't understand how you can live with the heaven flame peacefully, the coadjutant relation between you and the heaven flame is something that I have desired. You might not be able to exert the heaven flame's power at most, but you will never have to worry that it will backfire on you. Even though you have no more profound qi, you still can use the heaven flame. After a short pause, Yi Zhongfeng continued, the most important thing is the communication means between you and the heaven flame. The heaven flame can still maintain its consciousness and its ability to evolve naturally, which I have desired. If it is possible, I hope that the jail-refined true flame and I can form the same relationship. Yi Zhongfeng was very straightforward, didn't hide anything nor hesitated. Shiyang was astonished for a while before gently nodding his head. That's right. The relationship between the heaven flame and me is exactly like what you have just said. The matter of your profound qi doesn't seem to affect you badly. That's good. Yi Zhongfeng hesitated a little bit before continuing, it's not sure that your martial spirit has a bad mutation. I believe that you will overcome the inability to gather the profound qi. This kind of matter always exists during the mutation, and it will automatically disappear when the mutation is over. Shiyang was moved. The people of Yi Tianmo's group got excited. Why didn't you say it before? Shiyang grunted and unhappily asked. I forgot. Yi Zhongfeng burst into laughter, and then shifted his eyes toward Lin Yhe, winking at her. He walked straight out of the room without waiting for Shiyang to utter any more word. His voice echoed, all right, you should prepare for the meeting tomorrow. With your current situation, climbing the sacred light mountain is not easy. Shiyang was astonished. Master, you should rest, he said while a smiling sign appeared in Yi Tianmo's eyes. We know that you will definitely recover. With your current state, you will enter a whole new world once your profound qi is restored. Yhe Meng and Kobo nodded together. Shiyang laughed out loud, I hope so. Previously, Shiyang and the three people of Yi Tianmo's group had been discussing the matter of the Snow Dragon Island. Given the situation of losing all the profound qi, he was a little down, hence, he had instructed Yi Tianmo's group that they should not engender a feud with other people, and they should immediately leave after seizing the resources on the islands that were in their hands right now. However, the three people of Yi Tianmo's group hadn't agreed with him. Instead, they had insisted on staying with him, which had been out of his expectation. He hadn't expected that the three leaders of the demonic Sound Clan could have such respect for him. Shiyang's faith had been not too strong before. However, after having listened to Yi Zhongfeng's explanation, he had gradually been enlightened. At this time, he had already regained his belief and no longer had any intention of asking Yi Tianmo's group to leave him. When the sun descended behind the mountain, Shiyang discussed a little bit more with the three people of Yi Tianmo's group before asking them to go back to rest. He then sat cross-legged alone in the room. His mind gradually blended with his body, and his soul started spreading out, slowly entering his right arm, and concentrating all his consciousness into this arm. Shiyang's muscle fibers seemed to be magnified. His consciousness was moving between those sturdy muscle fibers, realizing as if it was entering a sea of energy. That was a new energy, formed by the fusion of the profound qi and the mysterious energy. This kind of energy stayed inside his arm, replenishing it with vitality and vigorousness. Would the fourth phase of the petrification martial spirit transform the entire body? Shiyang raised up his hope. Inside a human body, there were total 639 muscles which were constituted by 60 millions of muscle fibers, among of which, the longest muscle fiber was 60 centimeters and the shortest one was about 1 millimeter only. The heaviest muscle fiber was 200 grams, and the lightest one was only a few grams. For ordinary people, the muscles occupied around 35 to 40%, and the length of the total blood veins was around 100,000 kilometers. A lot of memories outflowed from his mind. These memories belonged to the body constitution subject of the other world. In that other world, he was very fond of intense movements, and thus, his body was much stronger than that of an ordinary one. He had also carried on a profound study of human body's muscles and attended several courses related to this subject. These memories had been deep-rooted but now massively flowed out all of a sudden. With only one hand that was going through the transformation, he had almost consumed all of his profound chi and the mysterious fused energy. So, if the entire body had to undergo the transformation, how terrifying that unknown power would be. Just one normal fist of his right hand had already made a 30-meter crater. So, if his entire body had the transformation, and that transformation was perfectly successful, what level would the power in his body possibly reach? Xiang squinted, his eyes were full of vitality. Chapter 326, Heading to the Mountain Peak. Chapter 326, Heading to the Mountain Peak. In the morning of the next day, many warriors had already gathered at the foot of the sacred Light Mountain, looking up toward the peak of the mountain and quietly giving compliments. The first beam of sunlight shining behind the sacred Light Mountain was magnified after traveling across the mountain. Only one gleam of light was enough to dazzle people's eyes. That ray of light seemed to have been reflected many times by the sacred Light Mountain, and thus, that blinding sunlight had already covered the mountain peak in just a short time. Many warriors at the foot of the mountain raised their heads looking up, seeing the blazing yellow light have already engulfed the entire sacred Light Mountain. The sacred Light Mountain looked as if it was gold-plated under the sun, which was extremely dazzling. Until the sun had gradually raised up, countless light rays shined, turning the sacred Light Mountain into a golden mountain with shining yellow halo that gave people a feeling of admiration and respect. The sacred Light Mountain emitted an impetuous aura and wallowed in the sunlight like the majestic mountain of gods. There was an imposing castle looked as if it was floating amid white clouds on the peak of the mountain. The scene was like a dream fairyland, which got a lot of compliments, whispers, and comments from many warriors who couldn't help but ask for their predecessors' permission to visit the sacred Light Mountain's peak. At the foot of the mountain, Li Fu and other 10 disciples of Three Gods sect were cautiously watching over a small road in the yellow hue. The entire sacred Light Mountain was immersed in the sunlight, emitted the tremendous aura that terrified other people. Disciples of Three Gods sect were taking strict guard, preventing other people from getting inside. Li Fu was standing at the beginning section of the small road, waiting in silence. After a short while, 2 master leaders of the Endless Sea, Yu Qin and Ji Yushao, quietly appeared, heading to Li Fu together. Those who were standing at the foot of the mountain were terrified. Many of them had never seen these 2 leaders of the 2 big forces, so they frighteningly cast furtive glances at them but couldn't stand passionately staring at Jiyu Linglong and Chu Yanqing with excited faces. Yi Qin and Ji Yushao slowly walked over in front of Li Fu, then handed him 2 golden invitation cards. Li Fu respectfully bent down, receiving the 2 invitation cards and inviting them to go up to the mountain peak. Yu Qin and Ji Yushao gently nodded, then moderately walked toward the mountain. They both knew that the rule here didn't allow them to fly, so they just gently stepped forward but with breakneck speed. Jiyu Linglong and Chu Yanqing wanted to enter, but Li Fu stopped them. "I am sorry, but this is a special case. Only those who have golden invitation cards are permitted to enter, and plus, each invitation is only for 1 person." Li Fu embarrassedly smiled, stretching his arms to impede the 2 of them and shaking his head. This time, it is weird. That's right. It seems to be very strict this time. None of the irrelevant people are allowed to walk in. This meeting seems to be very important. Unqualified people are not authorized to get in. Yes. Everyone was boisterously discussing, curiously looking up toward the mountain peak with dazed faces. In the clamorous noise, Jiyu Linglong's and Chu Yanqing's faces didn't look good. However, facing Li Fu's tactful rejection, they couldn't do anything but stopped at the foot of the mountain, looking ahead. The surrounding crowd quickly parted to give way while the noise seemed to cool down. The crowd felt comfortable and elated while being immersed in the warm sunlight. Suddenly, a flow of cold air came in, zooming over everyone's backs. A bizarre person in a black tunic and a grim mask was quietly approaching from afar. Yin Hai and the other disciples of Corpse's god sect were bending and walking behind him with gloomy faces and emotionless eyes like the dead. A flow of miasmal aura that could intimidate people was covering the entire area. Leading ahead was the hierarchy of Corpse's god sect, whose eyes were as peculiar as the dancing fenfires. All of the warriors there unconsciously bowed their heads, didn't dare to look straight into his eyes whenever his eyes scanned over them. Some of them even couldn't stand but take a few steps backward in panic. Corpse's god sect was the most devilish and mysterious sect in the Endless Sea. They made friends with corpses all day long and thus obviously had the icy miasmal aura that scared other people out of their wits. Wherever the Corpse's god sect's members appeared, they had never encountered any obstacles on their way as people automatically gave way to them. Even Li Fu's face changed a little bit, didn't look well. Qingming quietly walked forward with his fenfire eyes, then took out the golden invitation card and threw it to Li Fu. Li Fu caught the invitation card and conducted the inviting gesture. However, Qingming didn't hurriedly get in. Instead, he stopped, standing motionlessly right on the spot. Everyone was stunned, looking at him with the doubtful look without knowing whom he was waiting for. Not long after that, Shiyang, together with the 3 people of Yi Tianmo's group, appeared from afar, walking toward the foot of the mountain. As soon as Shiyang had arrived, plenty of people slightly screamed in admiration as they had witnessed the fight between Shiyang and Man Jiyu and understood how mighty Shiyang was. They immediately turned to the ones who hadn't seen that fight and told them the story. The hearts of many beautiful girls had been stirred after having seen Shiyang's sturdy body as well as his cold and firm momentum. Their eyes rippled while their souls kept vibrating non-stop, creating some kind of miraculous emotions. Jiyu Linglong and Chu Yanqing were standing on the way in. They knitted their eyebrows as soon as they saw Shiyang approaching, but they then instantly felt dispirited when seeing the surrounding people's admiring eyes. Jiyu Linglong's eyes were flooded with resentment as she gritted her teeth, bit her lips and couldn't help but snort. Chu Yanqing lamented in her heart with complicated eyes, which now tightly fixed on Shiyang, glinting with strange beams of light. Nobody knew what she was thinking. Shiyang walked over in front of Li Fu, threw an astonished glance at Qingming of Corpse's god sect and then nodded toward him with a smile. "Let's go together." Qingming gently invited with a voice that was indescribably miasmal like a poisonous snake sticking out its tongue, very unpleasant to others' ears. "Ah!" A lot of people couldn't help but scream, bewilderedly looking at Shiyang then Qingming. They would never understand why the hierarchy of Corpse's god sect had been waiting for a brat like Shiyang. In their mind, the person whom Qingming had been waiting for should be the lords of powerful forces like Yu Qin and Jiyu Shao. Although everyone knew that Shiyang was the member of the Yang family, he was still just a descendant of emperor. So why Qingming had to be humble waiting for him? Everyone was quietly discussing but still, couldn't find any reasonable explanation for this. "All right." Under astonished eyes of other people, Shiyang revealed a smile, took out the golden invitation card and handed it to Li Fu. Again, people were more curious about Shiyang as they saw he was presenting the invitation card. They wondered why Tang Yuannan had directly sent him the invitation card. "Young Master Yang, please." Li Fu bent down, revealing a flattering smile. "Young Master Yang, you might not have known about the 3 god sects' rule. Let me tell you a little bit. The Sacred Light Mountain has the formation technique that forbids flying, which means you can only walk. Please be noticed." Shiyang faintly smiled and nodded gently. He then quickly passed Li Fu gliding effortlessly up to the mountain, which greatly surprised other people. Qingming's eyes flared up a beam of light as he seemed to be a little suspicious. He thus stopped at the entrance for a few seconds, turning his head around looking at the 3 people of Yi Tianmo's group from a distance. The 3 of them were mingling in the crowd who immediately stepped far away from them due to the icy aura from their bodies. Nobody dared to stand close to them in the range of 10 meters, which was extremely weird. Under Qingming's scrutinizing look, the 3 of them sat down while their eyes became dark and cold. They then closed their eyes, meditating. Qingming was a little startled while a suspicion grew bigger in his heart. He gently shook his head, doubtfully looking toward Shi Yang's back ahead, and then followed Shi Yang heading to the sacred light mountain after a little hesitance. Shi Yang leisurely walked forward, heading to the mountain peak with a stony face. Shi Yang's right arm weighed around 15,000 kilograms. Without the profound qi, it was as if he was walking and carrying along a big mountain, preventing him from comfortably moving. The anomaly of the arm made Shi Yang happy and worried at the same time. He felt happy because the hidden forces in this arm actively agitated him. Meanwhile, he was worried because this mutant arm significantly influenced the balance of his body. With the right arm heavily hanging on the right side, small sound always came up every time his right leg landed. On the way to the sacred light mountain, he had noticed it and repeatedly tried different ways to avoid revealing this strange peculiarity. Very weird. Qingming's feeble voice came up from behind Shi Yang. Shi Yang knitted his eyebrows, turned his head looking at Qingming's flickering eyes and asked, "What is weird?" "I feel strange because the profound qi in your body seems to have totally drained. Nothing remains," Qingming said with a cold and dreary voice. "Even if you are exhausted after fighting with someone, you can still gather the sky and earth aura to condense into profound qi after a short time later. Your body's current situation truly surprises me. My martial spirit has encountered some problems, and thus it has hardly gathered profound qi. It is probably not easy to solve this matter." Shi Yang beamed a cold smile while his bright, sharp eyes stared at Qingming, then asked, "Are you satisfied with this answer?" Qingming's eyes glinted with the strange light. The dancing flame inside them became fierce as if it could jump out at any time. "Be careful with him. The heaven flame inside his body is vibrating strongly. He might have a murderous intention." The ice-cold flame inside the blood vein ring sent out a message to Shi Yang. Shi Yang was neglectful. His eyes became glacial. Chapter 327, On the Edge of Life and Death. Chapter 327, On the Edge of Life and Death. I have read a little bit about the mutant martial spirit. Your situation is quite special. Let me take a look. Perhaps I can find a solution for you. The hierarchy of the corpse's god sect gently said and slightly laughed. His laughter sounded gloomy and freaky as many green flames flickered in his dark green eyes and seemed very excited. After finishing his words, Qingming immediately took actions without waiting for Shi Yang's agreement. With the God Realm cultivation base, after slightly swaying his body, Qingming looked like a floating cloud, instantly appeared in front of Shi Yang. Qingming's grim mask, gloomy voice, and green eyes could give people an imagination of a fenfire flame in a night. He stretched out his gloved hand, his fingers bent, forming a claw or a hook, and then slowly aimed for Shi Yang's abdomen. A strand of strange green silk, like a small worm, appeared on his fingertips. Bringing along the corpse aura of the superb adjoined corpse's flame, it was like a living creature penetrating Shi Yang's abdomen. "Thank you. Don't bother." Shi Yang sneered while his left hand wearing the blood vein ring blocked Qingming's hand. The icy light flared up in Shi Yang's eyes as the aura from his body became cold. In a blink, the mountain peak looked as if it had been replaced by ice and snow. However, this freezing temperature was nothing to Qingming. Swoosh! When Shi Yang's left palm touched the 5 fingers of Qingming's hand, a strand of strange green silk suddenly darted out, crazily barging in Shi Yang's palm. Right after Shi Yang's hand had twinged, its bones instantly fragmented. As soon as the strand of green silk went through his palm, it smashed all the power that hindered its way, running along the wrist straight up to the arm. "I only have good intentions," Qingming said while the flame in Qingming's eyes was getting more radiant. "The power that I have launched might be a little too harsh to you, but I hope you understand that your hand's broken bones can easily be healed under the effect of your immortal martial spirit. As long as you don't resist it, that power of mine will not harm you further." Shi Yang's face remained calm as if he didn't feel his left hand had been crumbled. There was even no sign of grimace or pain on his face. He could clearly feel that that strand of green silk was running along the vessels in his arm, going straight up, aiming for the profound chi beam of light in his abdomen. Shi Yang's sense had alerted him during the whole process. "That's good though." Out of Qingming's expectation, Shi Yang suddenly relaxed, stopped using his icy power to resist. Instead, he comfortably stood still, watching Qingming's strand of silk, letting it freely penetrate into the profound chi beam of light in his abdomen. Qingming's eyes suddenly brightened as he felt a little astonished at heart, didn't know why Xiang willingly cooperated like that. Qingming stopped thinking, concentrated all of his power into the whirling flow of air at the profound chi beam of light in Xiang's abdomen. Afterward, the greenish power suddenly spread out everywhere from inside Xiang's abdomen, running along his vessels, creeping into every corner in his body. Xiang's face changed. Qingming revealed a wicked smile. In just a few seconds, Qingming's power had already occupied more than half of Xiang's body, running to most of the areas in his body, except for two places. One was his head, and the other was his wrist. Qingming's strand of silk emitted thousands of beams of power but couldn't penetrate into Xiang's head by any means, as well as his wrist, impossibly took even one step further. The green light burst out in Qingming's eyes. Suddenly, thousands of Qingming's beams of power inside Xiang's body condensed and gathered at his wrist to make a sudden breakthrough with the terrifying devilish aura, which was dozen times stronger than before. It seems that the problem is on your wrist. Just relax. I will use my full power to penetrate in there to see. As soon as the 5 fingers of Qingming let go of Xiang's left hand, the light in his eyes concentrated and instantly launched out. Xiang sneered, revealing a smile that was as sharp as a saber. Right at this moment, the blood vein ring on his left hand darted many rays of red light like a shower, covering Xiang's palm. The blood vein ring contained a crystal chunk that confined the 9 serenities' soul-devouring flame. Presently, this crystal chunk had been cracked open a small slit that freed the 9 serenities' soul-devouring flame after a long time of confinement. It then turned into a powerful flow of silver light that destroyed layers upon layers of the blood vein ring's bondage. The dark red halo seemed to cover Xiang's entire body. As soon as the blood vein ring flashed and the 9 serenities' soul-devouring flame immediately got out of that crystal chunk. The 9 serenities' soul-devouring flame condensed into a small face looked like a group of clouds converging at the top of Qingming's head. That little face revealed an exotic smile and suddenly spouted a flow of filthy air that enclosed Qingming's head. Qingming's eyes became dazed. Countless rays of light in Qingming's left eyes condensed into a face. That face was horrible, and it was putting its maximum power in condensing all of the green dots of light in both of his eyes. Momentarily, when a green halo suddenly appeared atop Qingming's head, layers after layers of those green dots clung onto that halo like stars in the sky. The disgusting air that the 9 serenities' soul-devouring flame had spat out turned into some kind of liquid attaching to Qingming's halo and quickly eroded it. However, the green dots of light that were sticking onto the halo also quickly gathered, forming a mysterious formation, emitting some kind of power that startled other people. A terrifying transformation appeared in Qingming's eyes while Xiang's eyes became sharp and icy cold. Qingming suddenly felt something wrong. Xiang's eyes were cold, a trace of sarcasm beamed out of the corner of his mouth. He suddenly retracted his left hand and slowly lifted his right arm in front of his chest at the same time. Anger inflamed in Qingming's eyes. Many flows of spiritual consciousness, which were like a shower pouring down from the galaxy, dementedly shot out, attacking Xiang. Swoosh! An exotic flow of light showed up between Xiang and Qingming, bringing along an alarming energy fluctuation. Qingming's soul consciousness, which had been released, were all blocked, impossibly dashed forward. At the foot of the sacred light mountain, the 3 people of Yi Tianmo's group displayed a stern look on their faces with solemn eyes and also emitted the murderous aura. Numerous warriors who were standing close to the 3 of them had realized their horrendous aura and thus instantly moved far away from them, extending the distance between them. Qingming's soul consciousness was totally halted. Even before he could retract his hand, a soul swirl suddenly appeared and crazily attacked toward his sea of consciousness as if it wanted to smash it down completely. I have acted recklessly. Qingming hurriedly screamed out, looking at Xiang in fear and said, I actually didn't have any malicious intent. Xiang, don't be too merciless, spare an exit for later. I don't spare anything, Xiang said with a cold face, because we will never see each other again. Qingming's eyes tragically changed. He was about to put all of his power forth to fight back. Unexpectedly, a soul force suddenly penetrated his body, depriving his control of the body. Yang was very calm, tried to lift his right arm, grabbing Qingming's heart. Arrogant brat. Two soul flows, as soft as cotton, interfered at the critical point of time all of a sudden. These two soul flows were as flexible as a rattan rope binding the soul consciousness of the three people of Yi Qianmo's group. Qingming's sea of consciousness immediately returned to its normal state, regained the control of the body in just a blink. A powerful force massively swarmed over. Crack, crack. The bones of Yang's left hand fragmented again. Qingming pushed his wrist forward with all of his strength. Yang's face changed while he instantly used his right hand to launch a full power attack. Boom! Landslide-like power poured down into the ground, dragging Yang's power into the inside of the mountain. Qingming's punch fell into the air, missed Yang. Qingming was about to continue taking actions but realized that the green halo on the top of his head had lost some layers of light. The little face of the Nine Serenities' soul-devouring flame had become clearer, slowly moving closer to his head. The green light in Qingming's eyes burst out. He no longer paid attention to Yang, but instead, he put all of his strength to deal with the Nine Serenities' soul-devouring flame. A wind-piercing sound suddenly came up at Qingming's side, and a figure then slowly appeared. It turned out to be Tang Yuannan. After having shown up and threw a quick glance at Qingming's current state, Tang Yuannan couldn't help but slightly utter in surprise, "Heaven flame. It is Yang's." Qingming gritted his teeth, snorted, and said, "Hierarchy Tang, do you want to have this heaven flame?" Right at this moment, the sound of footsteps came up. It seemed that some people were coming. Chapter 328, Brazen Intimidation. Chapter 328, Brazen Intimidation. At the foot of the Sacred Light Mountain, the figures of the three people of Yi Qianmo's group were slightly agitated while they felt backbone-chilling cold. Their soul consciousness immediately spread out, covering the entire entrance to the Sacred Light Mountain. The warriors surrounding were also frightened, running away to extend the distance between them furthermore. Under their horrified look, the three of them suddenly opened their gloomy and malevolent eyes, which looked like icy dew, flexed their legs and dashed forward. Li Fu, who was standing in the front and in charge of blocking the way, now became numb with stiffened face. He laughed and hastily moved forward to prevent them. "Sorry. No invite, cannot enter." The three people of Yi Qianmo's group didn't utter any words nor had any regard to Li Fu's words. Instead, they quickly turned into three flows of light storming forward. Li Fu's face changed dramatically. He wanted to hinder them but realized that they had already disappeared without leaving a trace. He hurriedly transmitted a message up to the mountain, informing that the three of them had gone up to the mountain. The crowd surrounding was extremely astonished, bewilderedly watching the three people's figures that were quickly fading away, as well as Li Fu's urgent act in transmitting the message. They then discussed with each other boisterously. They didn't expect that the three people of Yi Qianmo's group had dared to break the rules of the Three Gods sect even when they were in the other's territory. In a cave at the flank of the mountain, Yang was remaining calm with precautions while his cold eyes stared at Qingming. Qingming's limbs were a little bungled. Under the intimidation of the Nine Serenities' soul-devouring flame, he had to sweat his blood in resistance and, at the same time, enticed Tang Yuannan into taking actions to prevent its attack. Tang Yuannan surprisingly looked at Yang's legs, which had sunk about 10 meters deep into the ground, then shifted his eyes watching the crater caused by Yang's subduing palm. He contemplated for a while before giving a forced smile, then said, "Yang, retrieve your heaven flame. Otherwise, I will not have mercy." While speaking, Tang Yuannan quietly walked over behind Qingming and discreetly sent Yang a message. "Two people of the Yin-Yang Wonderland are on the way here, bringing one kind of peculiar treasure that can definitely dominate your soul-devouring flame. You should not act rashly." Yang was agitated in his heart, instantly transmitted a message into the blood vein ring, then lifted his left hand, pointing the blood vein ring toward the Nine Serenities' soul-devouring flame. The crystal chunk inside the blood vein ring that had confined the Nine Serenities' soul-devouring flame suddenly flared up a strong light. A powerful attraction force spread along with that light quickly, grabbing and pulling back the Nine Serenities' soul-devouring flame, which was about to take resistance. After having finished everything, Shi Yang slightly grinned, looked at Tang Yuannan and said, "Don't blame me. Hierarchy Qingming has intentionally explored the mystery of my body but hasn't expected to find the heaven flame in my body resulted in this situation." Seeing the 9 Serenities soul-devouring flame disappeared, Qingming quickly retrieved the green halo atop his head. The green dots of light attached on that halo also returned to his eyes. Listening to what Shi Yang said, Qingming coldly snorted with a trace of cruelty in his eyes, didn't say anything. At this moment, 2 figures were approaching side by side from the foot of the mountain. One of them was a man who was very good-looking with full of a mature man's charm, the other was a graceful woman who emitted the exceptionally mesmerizing aura. Any men who caught her glance would gradually lose their mind and become dazed. That was an experienced woman. Her charming body was heart-stirring with perfect curves. Especially her ample bosom, which was as if it just wanted to tear apart her blouse to come out. Her graceful rear end were big and round. Every time she walked, the left and right cheeks kept rippling, which indulged other people and made them unable to wake up from that mesmerizing feeling. The 2 palace masters of the young wonderland are here. Ha ha ha, I am still surprised with the 2 flows of swirling power earlier. Tang Yuannan smiled, looked at the 2 palace masters and nodded. Although Tang Yuannan was wearing a broad smile on his face, actually, he was secretly informing Shi Yang what had happened. Shi Yang understood immediately. Previously, these 2 palace masters of the Yin-Yang Wonderland were the ones who had taken actions at that critical point of time. That year when he had entered the Endless Sea, Xia Xinyan, and he had temporarily been lodging in a vessel of the Yin-Yang Wonderland. That vessel had brought them straight to the corpse burial plot number 93 of the Corpses God Sect. Afterward, he figured out that the Corpses God Sect and Yin-Yang Wonderland had a deep relationship. This time, when the 3 people of Yi Tianmo's group had suppressed the soul of the Corpses God Sect's hierarchy at the flank of the mountain, these 2 palace masters had used some secret technique to support Qingming. As a result, he had been able to escape the suppression and simultaneously launched a counterattack that had injured Shi Yang. In the cave, Shi Yang squinted, looking at the King of Earth and the Queen of Sky of Yin-Yang Wonderland with an odd face. Such an arrogant little rascal. The King of Earth slowly walked over, cast a cold glance at Shi Yang and laughed softly. "That year, Yang Tian Emperor wasn't this haughty like you. However, since then, the Yang family's later generations have been more arrogant than the previous ones. No wonder why other forces have united to sweep them out of the Endless Sea." The Queen of Sky was exceptionally mesmerizing, smiled alluringly while looking at Shi Yang with meaningful eyes, said sweetly, "Newborn calves are not afraid of tigers. A young man with great vigor is very praiseworthy. I like it." Her voice was very gentle and sweet, as if it could be carved deeply in people's hearts. After listening what she had said, Shi Yang felt as though he was immersed in a bathtub filled with hundreds of flowers, all pores on his body opened, indescribably relaxing. Suddenly, a flow of icy aura came up from the blood vein ring. This flow was like a bucket of cold water splashing onto his body, pulling him to the light from some dark, gloomy corner. Shi Yang's head was agitated, his pupils suddenly regained the brightness, looking at the charming, heart-stirring Queen of Sky who was even more terrifying than the King of Earth. Having said only a few words, this woman had already made him unable to control his mind, dazzled his head, and almost beaten him. This powerful mind control technique truly frightened Shi Yang out of his wit. His face changed dramatically as he quickly communicated with the ice-cold flame, asking it to remind him all the time. The mesmerizing eyes of the Queen of Sky brightened in shock as she felt horrified at heart seeing Shi Yang's reactions. In her eyes, this full-blooded Shi Yang was impossible to withstand her words' magic. However, he could unexpectedly recover after having been stunned just for a short period. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 3 gusts of wind pierced through the air coming up from behind. Not long after that, the 3 people of Yi Tianmo's group appeared next to Shi Yang. They immediately surrounded Shi Yang to protect him. Yi Tianmo's cold eyes then aimed straight at Qingming. At the same time, they shot out a grey stream of light. Ya Meng's and Kobo's countenance were unfriendly, furiously stared at Qingming, seemed to be about to launch their most horrifying soul attacks. Qingming's eyes became cold while he subconsciously took one step backward and stood together with the King of Earth and the Queen of Sky of the Yin-Yang Wonderland. The three people of Yi Tianmo's group happened to be on a confrontation course with Qingming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth. The situation was extremely tense. Tang Yuannan's face slightly changed, he frowned and said with a serious tone, "Gentlemen, this place is the Three Gods sect. Xiang, don't do anything rash. Do you really want to engage in a fight here?" Tang Yuannan looked at the three people of Qingming's group, but actually, he was secretly using his soul to send Xiang a message: "We are now under threats of the demon dwellers. A tragedy is coming. This is not the time to cause any internal conflicts. If you want to deal with them, wait until this matter is solved. You three, I think everyone gathers here to discuss the solution to dealing with demon dwellers. Is it so?" Tang Yuannan looked at the three people of Qingming's group. Both groups of Xiang and Qingming were still gazing at each other unfriendly, didn't say anything. At this moment, Cao Zhilan and Man Jiyu of the uncultivated barbarian sect were walking side by side, approaching them. Mangu's face was pale, but his spirit was not bad. Although he had been injured from the fight with Xiang, he seemed to have significantly recovered thanks to Cao Zhilan's pellets. What happened? Cao Zhilan was a little bit astonished, looking at Xiang and those of Qingming's group respectively, then frowned. "Demon dwellers have not come yet, but you have already wanted to cause an internal war? Lady Cao, that little rascal has taken actions first." Qingming pointed at Xiang and said coldly, "That little rascal has released ruthless attacks. If the Queen of Sky and the King of Earth haven't been nearby, I could have been defeated by his fatal strike. I don't think that he has any intention of uniting with us to deal with the demon dwellers." Cao Zhilan was astonished. She suspiciously shifted her eyes toward Xiang and then back to Qingming before speaking up. "Xiang cannot gather profound qi, how could he harm you?" She was very curious. Since she had left the manor, her head had been occupied with discouraging thoughts about Xiang. In her eyes, as he could no longer gather profound qi, his future would certainly be limited, though he still possessed some mysteries in his body. However, after only one day, at the flank of this mountain, Qingming had almost tasted Xiang's fatal strike. She didn't know what the current situation was. Cao Zhilan's beautiful eyes glinted with a strange beam of light. She was full of suspicion, didn't know whether Qingming was telling the truth or not. "Let's go." Xiang suddenly turned around, walked down the mountain while his eyes remained calm. Tang Yuannan's face slightly changed. The three people of Qingming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth were also surprised, didn't know why Xiang was coming down the mountain. The three people of Yi Tianmo's group followed Xiang without uttering a word. "Xiang." Tang Yuannan dropped his jaw in astonishment with complicated eyes. He guessed something should have gone wrong. "I don't have any interest in the endless seas situation nor any attachments here, and I am not worried about demon dwellers' slaughter in the seas." Xiang ruthlessly said, "How many people die in this sea doesn't have anything matters to me, and the endless sea is not worthy for me to care. So, you guys can take your time to discuss the plan for dealing with the demon dwellers. I am not interested in it." After a short pause, Xiang suddenly turned around, calmly looked at Qingming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth and said, "I hope the corpses God sect and Yin-Yang Wonderland are blessed, because besides facing the demon dwellers, you guys probably will have to deal with our attack. I honestly hope that you can handle this." The faces of Qingming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth changed dramatically. Chapter 329, Regardless of Consequences. Chapter 329, Regardless of Consequences. Afterward, Xiang determinedly left as he had said and didn't give other people a chance to explain. He followed the same path, coming back to the foot of the mountain. Tang Yuannan's face darkened, coldly looked at the three people of Qingming's group and said, "I think you three have troubles." Qingming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth exchanged looks, slightly knitted their eyebrows, but didn't seem to worry too much. They thought that they didn't need to be worried, because although Yi Tianmo's group was dangerous, they themselves also had God Realm cultivation base, plus the corpse's God sect had the King Corpse. Cao Zhilan frowned, whined within her heart, looking at the Queen of Sky, Aunt Xiong, Throwing your back at him is not a wise move. The Yin-Yang Wonderland's Queen of Sky was Fan Xionghyun. After having listened to Cao Zhilan, she laughed out loud, blinking while the end of her eyebrows arched slightly. Looking toward Cao Zhilan then asked, "Little Lan Zi, why did you say so?" The Yin-Yang Wonderland and Cao family both based in the Tutor Sea, in which the Cao family was the strongest force, far surpassed the other three forces. When Cao Zhilan had been little, she had been like a boy, a little wild. As Cao Qiudao hadn't seen her be like a girl, he had brought her to Yin-Yang Wonderland so that the Queen of Sky Fan Xionghyun could have taught her for a while. Therefore, her relationship with the Queen of Sky was quite close, and Fan Xionghyun was also considered as her master. Because of that, Fan Xionghyun had started calling her Little Lan Zi since she had still been a little girl, and when she grew up, Fan Xionghyun still called her that way. It proved that their feelings for each other were not shallow. "Aunt Xiong, this guy Shiyang is lunatic. Once he says something, he will definitely do it." Cao Zhilan beamed a forced smile. Although he cannot gather profound qi, those pagans still respect him as before. As you and others have offended him, I am afraid that those pagans will launch a counterattack. They are only 3 pagans. When we 3 unite, even if we might still be slightly inferior, but together with the king corpse of the corpse's god sect, our strength should not be less than theirs. Fan Xionghyun looked a little strange. Many rays of light were shot out from her beautiful eyes, which could dazzle others' mind. She revealed a smile and said, "What? You don't believe in Auntie?" Cao Zhilan shook her head, whining, "That's not their real ability. Those 3 pagans take only half of their strength. On the Snowdragon Island, there are another 2 pagans who are even more intimidating than those 3 guys. When these 5 God Realm warriors unite, Aunt Xiong, tell me if you have a chance to win or not. Let alone that you have to face the Demon Dwellers' invasion." After having listened to what Cao Zhilan had said, the faces of Qingming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth changed instantly. Tang Yuannan eyes glinted with a beam of light. He quietly evaluated Cao Zhilan a little bit and then slightly nodded. "This is what I have worried about. Those 5 pagans remain calm due to their relationship with Shiyang. If the 5 of them don't aim at the demon dwellers but at you guys, the consequence is indeed unimaginable. Why didn't you say it earlier?" Qingming said with a gloomy voice, kept feeling doleful within his heart, quietly blamed Tang Yuannan for hiding the information from him. "I have kept warning you, but you haven't listened to me. You have too much of interest in the heaven flame in Shiyang's body. Your interest was unduly excessive that I had to up." Tang Yuannan shook his head reluctantly, released a sigh and said, "I am going to talk reasons to him now. I hope he will listen to me. Otherwise, you 3 should come up with a solution by yourselves." Having finished his words, Tang Yuannan slowly disappeared in front of other people's eyes. 15 minutes later, a freaky buzzing sound came up in front of Shiyang. Tang Yuannan suddenly appeared. "Shiyang, calm down." Tang Yuannan made a forced smile while blocking his way. Because Qingming also has a heaven flame, he thus has had a greedy intention. However, after everything has happened, I think he would not dare to act recklessly again. Currently, the demon dweller's menace is right in front of us. If you cause any chaos now, the Endless Sea will truly be in more dangers. Do you really want to irritate other forces so that they will unite to deal with you? If so, I don't think you will be in peace. Shiyang contemplated, didn't say anything. It was not because of Tang Yuannan's words that he would change his mind. If you act like that, the consequence will not be different from the Yang family's current situation. Tang Yuannan hesitated a little bit before continuing. If you make other people your enemies, you will be isolated and become a target of others' dispraises. Even if you have powerful and mighty forces, you still cannot stand against the entire Endless Sea, let alone that the Cao family and Martial Holy Palace are also very terrifying. If these 2 forces unite, you will have nothing except for a catastrophic end. How powerful are the Cao family and Martial Spirit Palace? Shiyang asked with a low tone. If Cao Qiudao and Yang Yitian release their full power strikes without caring about injuring themselves, they can kill a second sky of the God Realm warrior. It is unknown where this amazing power comes from, but even Yang Tian Emperor also has to be wary of it. For now, only Cao Qiudao, Yang Yitian, and Yang Tian Emperor have that kind of lethal power. This is also the reason why the martial spirit palace, the Cao family, and the Yang family are top 3 forces in the Endless Sea. Tang Yuannan exclaimed. Shi Yang shivered while his face slightly changed. Don't be agitated. The Endless Sea is much more complicated than what you have imagined. Qingming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth might not be your opponents, but if you make a mess in the Tutor Sea, I don't think Cao family will leave you in peace. Tang Yuannan straightforwardly said, in Tutor Sea, Yin-Yang Wonderland, Corpses God sect, and uncultivated barbarian sect all have a close relationship with Cao family. It can be said that Cao Qiudao is the true master in Hengluo Sea. If you take actions with the Yin-Yang Wonderland and Corpses God sect in Tutor Sea, Cao family will certainly not sit idly. Xiang frowned and then nodded, spoke up after a long while, I know. I can temporarily ignore everything in the Endless Sea. Wait until the Endless Sea and the demon dwellers engage in a fight. Let's see if Cao Qiudao is lucky enough to survive in the hands of the Demon Kings and the Dark Kings. Demon Kings? Dark Kings? Tang Yuannan shook his head, revealed a smile and said, impossible. The people in the underworld cannot break through the gate of heaven. Traveling through the gate of heaven is under the 3 god sects' close watch. After a short pause, Tang Yuannan continued, Demon Kings are unlikely to do so for sure. The gate of heaven is surely powerful enough to limit the masters at that level. Otherwise, in the past years, the Demon Kings cannot have used only a white skeleton to present themselves in the Endless Sea. Their true bodies have been constrained, and thus, they cannot go through the gate of heaven. It seems you haven't been updated about the current situation. Xiang released a sigh. What situation? Tang Yuannan was startled. Since hundreds of years ago, the demon dwellers and the dark dwellers have joined their forces. During that time, the 4th demon area and the 7-fold underworld certainly opened up a path that interconnected the 2 places. Hence, after people of the 7-fold underworld could enter the demon area, these 2 horrifying races have together taken tens of millions of corpses and souls to condense into the corpse-soul bridge that can connect to any worlds. Afterward, they have used the spirit powers of tens of millions of people to repair the instability of the space nodes so that the true bodies of the Demon Kings and Dark Kings can appear in the Endless Sea. Xiang coldly explained. Tang Yuannan's body was shaking violently while his face was wearing an unbelievable look. He looked at Xiang and asked, where did you get this information? From my heaven flame. Xiang knitted his eyebrows and replied, it knows some ancient secrets. According to what it has said, the 7-fold underworld and the demon dwellers have been building the corpse-soul bridge together. Perhaps that bridge is about to be completed. Even though the demon dwellers have been invading the Kiara Sea, they haven't dealt with you guys right away. It may be because they are carrying on the slaughter in the Kiara Sea, using the spirit powers of tens of millions of people to continue condensing into the corpse-soul bridge. After a short pause, Xiang released a sigh and continued, I am afraid that people are currently in misery in the Kiara Sea, and all islands there have probably turned into the dead ones. The tragic situation of the Kiara Sea will spread out to the Hengluo Sea very soon. Tang Yuannan's face turned a little pale. Moreover, as far as I have observed, none of you have realized the severity of the situation as everyone has their own plans and conspiracies. Honestly speaking, I don't think you guys are as strong as the demon dwellers. Therefore, I temporarily want to step aside to watch how the situation progresses. Xiang revealed a relentless smile, then avoided Tang Yuannan and continued going down the mountain. The 3 people of Yi Tianmo's group quickly followed him. Tang Yuannan was in a daze while his pupils flashed up. It seemed he was considering something. After a while, he suddenly disappeared and then reappeared in the previous area where Qingming and other people were gathering. He looked at them and said, go to the mountain peak. I have something important to tell you guys. This matter is related to the life and death of the entire Endless Sea. Those people were surprised in fear. They were about to ask for more but then realized that Tang Yuannan had already disappeared. Qingming, Queen of Sky, King of Earth, Cao Zhilan, and Manji Yu exchanged looks, didn't know why Tang Yuannan was frightened that much. Although they were a little bit astonished, they still hurriedly walked to the mountain peak. "Young Master Yang, why are you?" At the foot of the mountain, Li Fu strangely looked at Shiyang. "Have the hierarchy sent you back here?" The crowd was clamorous instantly. Many of them felt exultant within their heart, thinking that Shiyang had been expelled by the Three Gods sect because the three people of Yi Tianmo's group had gone up the mountain, which had violated the rules of the Three Gods sect. Jiyu Jinglong was delighted quietly. Her small mouth curled up, revealing a faint smile, while her mood suddenly became much better. However, a trace of surprise and peculiarity flashed over in Chu Yanqing's eyes. It seemed she didn't expect Shiyang to go down the mountain that sudden, and thus, she quietly speculated about what had happened up there. Shiyang didn't look at those people, remained his indifferent countenance, and followed the same path to go back to his accommodation. "Ah, look! Zhong Lidan." "What? Zhong Lidan is here? The people of the martial holy palace have finally come." The crowd was now buzzing with boisterous discussions. Everyone raised their heads, looking up to the sky, and saw a green scaly dragon. This green scaly dragon was about 50 meters long, covered with splendid green scales. Its head was huge, and its eyes shot out a cold light. Someone whose appearance wasn't quite clear was sitting on its neck. Under scrutinizing looks of everyone, the green scaly dragon's body constantly twisted while a beam of astonishment gleamed in its eyes. This green scaly dragon seemed to be avoiding someone's pursuit. An ear-piercing screech reverberated from that green scaly dragon. The body of that level 7 beast slightly shook as it wanted to enter the Sun Island anxiously. "Ah!" Shi Yang was startled with his eccentric visage, looking toward the sky, and seemed to have realized some strange aura. Chapter 330, Devil Clouds Engulfing the Sky. Chapter 330, Devil Clouds Engulfing the Sky. The 7th level beast green scaly dragon was struggling around, as it was continually roaring outside the Sun Island, and rushing into the Sun Island anxiously. There was a figure sitting on the green scaly dragon, who was also shouting and screaming, as though to urge the people of the Sun Island to remove the formation technique. There was a strange formation technique surrounded the Sun Island. The outsiders would have no way to enter the island without the Three Gods sect's permission. Even if he was Zhong Lidan of the Martial Spirit Palace, he could not violate this rule. The man could only fly around outside of the island. Seeing the current situation of Zhong Lidan and Green Scale Dragon, the people on the Sun Island were terrified. Even the group of Cao Zhilan, Qingming, and other people on the Sacred Light Mountain were also startled. They all looked up to the sky, didn't know what the Green Scale Dragon was avoiding. An ear-piercing screech bringing along a ferocious aura reverberated from very far away. As soon as the sound had echoed, the sea around the island boiled up instantly, creating a lot of huge waves. That sound could tear eardrums and crush fragile people's souls. Le Fou's face changed as he seemed to have figured out something. He then suddenly leaped up to the sky. Li Fu was one of those receptionists who welcomed guests to the island. At this moment, he hurriedly flew to the green scaly dragon and split the formation technique open quickly. Having been awaited for a chance to enter, the green scaly dragon immediately glided through as soon as it saw the crack appear. The 7th level green scaly dragon turned into a green current of light, disappearing into the sky. 15 minutes later, the green scaly dragon reappeared in the sky of the Sun Island. The rider seemed to be standing on its back, slightly patting its body. The green scaly dragon roared and dashed toward the Sacred Light Mountain with the fastest speed, going straight up to the mountain peak. Although the Sacred Light Mountain was surrounded with another formation technique, the green scaly dragon was still moving freely as if this area didn't have any obstacles. The first rank in the power ranking list, Zhong Lidan, was in an extreme urgency, as he was ignoring the rules of the Three Gods sect. He dashed straight to the mountain peak and kept screaming, seemingly wanting to tell Tang Yuan something. The group of Tang Yuan and others, who were still on the mountain peak, were extremely frightened after having heard Zhong Lidan's explanation. The crowd at the foot of the Sacred Light Mountain didn't know what was happening. Some of them were looking up to the sky, some were looking toward Zhong Lidan, while the others cast their eyes toward the Sacred Light Mountain's peak. But they all had a vague feeling of insecurities. Another loud, earth-shaking noise came up from afar, followed by plenty of other noises near the island. Huge waves surged, massively lapping on the coast as if they wanted to destroy everything. Xiang and the 3 people of Yi Tianmo's group, who were on the way back to their manor, suddenly halted their steps as they also realized that something was wrong. In particular, after Xiang had heard the ear-splitting sound, his eyes were instantly flooded with suspicions. "Master, what happened?" Yi Tianmo noticed Xiang's change, couldn't help but gently ask after being a little hesitant, "Did you realize something?" Xiang's face looked peculiar while he nodded slightly. "I don't know why I have recognized a familiar aura in that scream." Yi Tianmo was dazedly astonished, unknowingly looked up to the sky. At this time, the sun had already mounted high in the sky. Sunlight was shining over the entire island, and the sacred light mountain looked as if it was gold-plated. All of the warriors on the island were immersed in the glowing yellow sunlight. Xiang was not an exception. However, the difference between him and others was that while drowning in the sunlight, he could feel the heart of the star martial spirit producing a suction force, gathering plenty of sunlight, and absorbing them into his heart. His tender beating heart transmitted a warm flow of air which was not too strong and was quickly getting hotter. A trace of surprise glimmered on Xiang's face. He could feel his heartbeat as well as the light penetrating into his heart. He had decided to wait until the summit on the mountain peak was over. He would then find Tang Yuanan to ask more about this star martial spirit's mystery and why it was that magical. While he was still musing deeply, he suddenly detected the suction force of the star martial spirit stopped unknowingly. Xiang couldn't help but look up to the sky with suspicions, wanted to know what was happening. Frightening screams resounded from everywhere. Many people looked at the sky terrifyingly as their eyes kept changing non-stop. Watching the sky, Xiang felt aghast inside his heart. It was unknown from where a group of inky black clouds was drifting over and quickly covering the entire sky of the Sun Island. After that, countless clusters of pitch-black clouds also overwhelmed the sky hastily, shrouding the sunlight. The sacred light mountain, which had formerly been bathing in the light, now became gloomy and darkened. This anomalous change didn't have any warning signs or indications. Until people realized something wrong, the sun had already disappeared, leaving only clusters of black clouds in the sky. The clear sky darkened instantly. Daytime became nighttime in just a blink. In the darkness, horrifying roars sometimes resounded from the surrounding of the island, giving people a hair-raising feeling as if numerous creatures were gathering and besieging this island. Many warriors on the island felt terrified at heart, shouting out loud in fear, wanting to go up the mountain urgently. Masters of different forces were gathering on the sacred light mountain's peak, and thus, it should be the safest place in case the Sun Island had a major change. Without the golden invitation cards, no one is allowed to mount the sacred light mountain. It was unknown since when Li Fu had stood at the entrance, shouting, "Everyone should return to your accommodations. We will have the answer for the anomaly in the sky soon. Everyone should calm down." However, the crowd didn't seem to care about it anymore. With the great panic in everyone's hearts, they ignored Li Fu and rushed to the top of the mountain crazily. Li Fu and some warriors of the Three Gods sect screamed out loud for a while but got no others' attention. Thus, they wanted to take actions but then realized they had been submerged in the crowd, so they could only use the yin stone to ask for Tang Yuannan's instruction. Xiang knitted his eyebrows as a vague feeling came up within his heart. He looked up to the sky coldly, contemplated for a while, and then made a quick decision: return with the fastest speed. Yi Tianmo didn't say a word, just reached out to grab Xiang's arm and leaped up. Ye Meng and Kobo were also aware of the strange situation and thus quickly returned to the manor. Xie Shunchuan and Xie Xinyan were in the manor. As they had also realized the unusual changes in the sky, Xie Shunchuan had used the yin stone to communicate with other people of Xie family, reassuring them. With huge doubts, Xie Shunchuan and Xie Xinyan went to the outer room, looking toward the sky. Yi Zhongfeng and Lin Yaqi were also astonished, blankly watching the changes in the sky. What happened? Xie Shunchuan walked over, stole a glance at Yi Zhongfeng, and asked calmly. We don't know yet. Yi Zhongfeng shook his head with a face that had never been this serious before. Many beasts are gathering here. Besides, The sky is overwhelmed with devil clouds. Perhaps the demon dwellers of the demon area are already here. Currently, the Sun Island is blockaded. We don't know how many beasts and demon dwellers there are. It is truly unbelievable. Along with their fast heartbeats, deafening and prolonged sounds continued to reverberate outside the Sun Island. While Xie Shunchuan was in shock, Yi Tianmo, together with Shi Yang, suddenly came back. Ah! Yi Zhongfeng was startled. Didn't you go to the summit? Why do you come back so soon? Did you have news from the mountain? Shi Yang shook his head, waiting for Yi Tianmo to put him down, and then replied with his knitted eyebrows, no one knows what is happening for now. From the current circumstance, perhaps someone wants to devastate the Sun Island. Even though that person knows that many warriors are gathering for the summit on the sacred light mountain this time, he still dares to besiege the island. It means he has prepared well before coming here. Perhaps he truly has the ability to slaughter all the God Realm warriors here. Yi Zhongfeng nodded in agreement with Shi Yang. It is highly possible. You guys should not separate. Wait and see the change. Once the situation gets worse, we will immediately withdraw from the island. Shi Yang calmly said after having considered for a while. Xie Shunchuan and Xie Xinyan quietly nodded and released a sigh. The three people of Yi Tianmo were the God Realm warriors. Thus, having them by their side, everyone else felt a little bit less worried. If something bad happens, their opportunity to survive was still higher than others. As soon as that thought had come across in their mind, anomalous change happened in the sky. Shi Yang suddenly sat down, gritted his teeth quietly, and placed his right hand on the ground while his eyes kept changing. Everyone couldn't help but look at him attentively. No one knows why Shi Yang's right arm was now covered with green silk fibers. With a closer look, those fine silk fibers were attaching onto his flesh and slowly moving as well. With the scrutinizing gaze at his arm, everyone imagined that his right arm was like being wrapped with plenty of worms, which scared them out of their wits. Chapter 331, Using an Ox Cleaver to Carve a Chicken. Chapter 331, Using an Ox Cleaver to Carve a Chicken. Shi Yang's face looked serious and solemn while his soul consciousness was gathering at his right arm. He attentively observed the transformation of his arm. Tens of thousands of green silk threads were slowly squirming on his arm as if they wanted to destroy his muscle fibers and smashed down his arm into pieces. Inside each of the green silk fibers, devilish energy was like a small insect eroding Shi Yang's body, eating his flesh and blood, turning his arm into sparkling white bones. These forces came from the hierarchy of the corpse's god sect Qingming. At the flank of the sacred light mountain, Shi Yang had taken advantage of the three kinds of heaven flames, which had been bound with the souls of Yi Tianmo's group, as well as the state where his profound qi had been drained, to make Qingming drop his vigilance and ambushed him. Because Qingming's soul had been under the control of Yi Tianmo's group, thus he had lost the ability to control his body, and Shi Yang almost had a chance to injure Qingming severely. However, the Queen of Sky and the King of Earth had shown up and interfered right on time that helped Qingming avoid the danger and injured Shi Yang seriously at the same time. If he hadn't had a quick reaction, Qingming could have had obliterated him. Among the God Realm warriors, Qingming was probably the weakest one. Regardless of the soul cultivation, martial techniques, or mighty profound qi, he was at the lowest rank. The reason was that most of his spiritual power came from the corpses. He had wasted many years in interlinking with the king corpse and cultivating the corpse controlling technique. Therefore, even though he had reached the God Realm, his strength was the least mighty. Without the king corpse, Qingming's personal strength was far inferior to those of other God Realm warriors. However, even so, the gap between him and Shi Yang was huge, and that Shi Yang still was not his match. If the three people of Yi Tianmo's group hadn't used their souls to suppress Qingming, as well as without the Heaven Flame's intimidation, Qingming could have had killed Shi Yang. With just one flow of Qingming's force remaining in his body, Shi Yang was already in inexplicable pain. Watching the peculiar silky fibers started spreading and infiltrating into his whole arm, gnawing his flesh and blood, Shi Yang shuddered, wanted to find some help to remove them. He was about to call for the ice-cold flame but realized that the anomaly suddenly occurred on his right arm. A stream of beautiful red light burst out from his right arm. In a blink, all the blood cells in his arm were as if they are reviving and trembling. After that, Xiang's body was violently shaken, and along with this tremor, his right arm brought forth a tremendous suction force. It was like each of his muscle fibers suddenly turned into a vortex in the sea, attracting all the energy on his arm, which then became the nourishing sources for his arm. That purple-red light expanded. Under Xiang's scrutinizing eyes, rippling waves were emerging from that glamorous purple-red light. The green energy instantly disappeared, as it was assimilated and fused by the devilish energy from Xiang's muscles, becoming a part of his body. The mutation slowly ended. That purple-red light quickly vanished as well. Xiang's right arm had originally had the skin color, but now it turned into the completely purple-red hue. Suddenly, that moderate purple-red light gently spread out. With a quick glance, Xiang's right arm looked like a purple-red jade exuding many glistening beams of light. He balled his hand into a fist. A strange flow of forces flowed out violently and gathered in the middle of his palm in just a blink. Xiang was wearing determination on his face, grinned, and launched a fist all of a sudden. A purple-red circle of light burst out sharply. As soon as the light had been discharged, strange fluttering sounds came up in the air. The light diffused and soon covered the entire 5-story stone house. The booming sounds reverberated. Under everyone's scrutinizing look, the dozens of meters high stone house collapsed, and rubble scattered everywhere. The mightiness of this purple-red light was unabated. Its irresistible power continued sweeping across here and there like a hurricane after having destroyed the stone house. The extra power then devastated another 2-story stone house and eventually turned into plenty purple-red dots of light, disappearing into the void. Everyone's faces were aghast, looking at him blankly. Xiang forced a smile, tried his best to lift his right arm, then said, "The power is not bad." Everyone nodded dazedly, feeling frightened at heart. That is not just not bad. The powerful fist had discharged that terrifying light and destroyed the whole dozens of meters high stone houses. What kind of ordinary warriors could have this strength? Without the profound qi and only relying on the strange forces in the arm, the power from his right arm had still created a tremendous intimidation, which was not inferior to the previous full power strike. So, although Xiang would probably never be able to gather the profound qi again, he would not be weaker than any other people. A thought suddenly flashed across Xiang's mind. Pour your energy into my body. Let's see how much my body can bear. And, I also want to check if I can use it as the profound qi or not. Xiang sent out a message to the ice-cold flame. Understood. The ice-cold flame instantly responded. After 15 minutes, a stream of cold water from the blood vein on his broken left hand massively rolled forward. The ice-cold flame's cold water flow, which was like the surging waves bursting the dike, crazily rushed into his body. His left arm was quickly frozen, and the bone-chilling coldness was spreading out quietly. Under everyone's scrutinizing looks, Xiang sneered once again, suddenly squatted down, and gently pressed his right arm on the ground. The ground was frozen in just a blink. Many splendid, transparent circles of power expanded from his left arm. With his left arm as the center, a pellucid flow of mist penetrated into the earth and quickly spread out with amazing speed. Crack, crack, crack. Wherever that flow of mist passed through, the ground instantly turned into extremely thick ice. A 5-meter-wide ice road was being formed and continued extending. After that flow of mist passing through, plants and trees there all turned into beautiful ornaments which were not different than those being displayed in the Ice Museum. Even the 2 ancient trees also became the sparkling, marvelous Xmars trees. The mist continued diffused forward, and another dozens of meters high stone house became its next target. In a blink, that stone house had been covered with ice. Everyone rolled their eyes and dropped their jaws. Xiang was crouching on the ground while many sparkling lights were moving as fast as electricity in his left hand. He retrieved his left arm while his right arm quickly launched a punch. With his feet as the center, the ice world suddenly broke down into crumbles. The ground cracked open, plants and trees immediately turned into ice fragments scattering in the sky. The 2 ancient trees exploded, and the house was also crushed into numerous pieces of ice. In other words, The fact that Shiyang had frozen everything was not different than arranging a trap to destroy opponents. Bone-chilling air spread out everywhere from the place that he was standing. Many of the female guards in the manor couldn't bear it. Although they had moved hundreds of meters away, they still felt freezing. If it continued like this, they would be soon frozen to death in a few blinks. Yi Tianmo's group were in a daze and then quickly took actions to push back the coldness, but it wasn't very effective. Shiyang retracted his right arm, suddenly had some thought, and thus he communicated with the ice-cold flame simultaneously. He still lacked the experiences in using the heaven flames. He could easily release them but encountered many difficulties in controlling and retrieving them. At this moment, he had no way to carry on any experiments, as he could only rely on the ice-cold flame. Out of everyone's expectation, Yi Zhongfeng suddenly shouted, "Resist!" Countless flames constantly appeared from Yi Zhongfeng's body, flew around in the sky with the speed that naked eyes could hardly see, and then covered the entire range of 300 meters, preventing the coldness of the ice-cold flame from spreading out. Sizzle, sizzle. The ice-cold flame used its icy power to strike on the red circle of flames in the air. The water vapor came up impetuously, and then the icy power was washed away after a short time. Shiyang gently exhaled a sigh of relief, cried out anxiously and stormed outside quickly, dashing toward a girl who was hundreds of meters away. That girl had originally thought that she would have had been dead with, as she was wearing a frightened face and sad eyes. However, she suddenly saw a circle of fire prevented all of that coldness. Even before she could have any reactions, she already saw Shiyang having stood in front of her with a worried face. She suddenly felt the sweetness in her heart. He has put me in his heart. As he had taken the initiative to come here, he should have me in his heart. That girl quietly hoped, revealed a satisfied smile on her face as if she would still have been pleased if Shiyang had accidentally killed her. "Linda, why are you here?" Shiyang shook her body, showing a worried face, and asked gently, "Are you okay?" The long-braided girl revealed a smile while her eyes were full of joy. She replied, "I am a disciple of the Three Gods sect. As too many guests have come to the Sun Island, I have been arranged to come here to help serve the guests. Because I know you stay here, so I have asked to come here." The more she talked, the blusher her face became, together with a little embarrassment. Shiyang felt touched. He was about to say something, but right at this moment, plenty explosive sounds resounded from the sky. Shiyang subconsciously looked up to the sky, and his face changed dramatically. A huge bone ship suddenly emerged from the inky black clouds in the sky. The bone ship was snow-white, totally made of human bones. That ship was gliding extremely fast in the clouds, strongly striking on the sunlight from the sky. Numerous figures were moving back and forth on that 1,000-meter-long ship. Plenty demon dwellers with ferocious appearances, ruthless eyes, and bloodthirsty faces were excitedly looking down to the Sun Island below. Chapter 332, Kaiyang. Chapter 332, Kaiyang. Divine Craft Demon God. Yi Zhongfeng was looking at the huge bone ship in the sky, which was slowly emerging from the dark. Suddenly he cried out in fear with an aghast face and disbelieving look. In the inky black clouds, a huge, dazzling, eye-catching bone ship was approaching, bringing along the earth-shaking, destructive aura which froze Xiang's heart and gave him a powerless feeling. When Yi Zhongfeng screamed out, a strange light glinted in his eyes. He hesitated a little bit before quickly turning to Lin Yaqi and said, "Sister, we should leave immediately." Lin Yaqi's countenance looked unprecedentedly heavy. She nodded slowly and uttered softly, "Yeah. What is the divine craft demon god?" Xiang couldn't help but ask while his face was changing dramatically. After having looked at the anomaly in the sky, he walked over Linda's side and unhesitatingly dragged her to where everyone else was gathering. When Linda came to the crowd, she was a little shy and frightened looking at Xia Xinyan. She then bowed her head, didn't dare to talk. Linda was from the Keel clan on the Snow Dragon Island. This small clan was not a prominent force in the Endless Sea, just an outer force of the Three Gods sect, and could not compare with the Xia family. In addition to the huge gap between their origins, Xia Xinyan was too beautiful and noble, She also possessed a profound cultivation base as well as the reincarnation martial spirit. With all those reasons, Linda had a feeling of inferiority when facing Xia Xinyan. She stood next to Xiang disconcertedly, didn't even dare to glance at Xia Xinyan. Xia Xinyan was a little doubtful, didn't know how Xiang had known Linda. However, given the current strange situation, she didn't ask about this but looked at Yi Zhongfeng with an astonished face, waiting for him to explain something related to the divine craft demon god. The divine craft demon god is the flying palace of the demon king Kaiyang. It has existed for a long time. There were some other demon kings before Kaiyang who used to own this flying palace. Some people have said that this divine craft demon god has been made of bones, flesh, blood, and souls of the 9th level beasts in the demon area. It is not only huge but also terribly powerful. Yi Zhongfeng said with a serious face, the divine craft demon god is the cultivation place of demon king Kaiyang. If the divine craft demon god appears in the endless sea, it means that demon king Kaiyang should also be inside that ship. Kaiyang is at the 3rd sky of the god realm, and he is only half step away to reach the true god realm. As such powerful person shows up here, the people on the Sun Island should probably seek for blessings. Impossible. Xiang's face changed tragically. He spoke out loud, with that level, how can demon king Kaiyang enter the endless sea with his true body? Before the corpse soul bridge is finished, they definitely cannot arrive here with their true bodies. I don't know either, Yi Zhongfeng shook his head. In the legend, wherever the divine craft demon god is, demon king Kaiyang will be there as well. We have to leave immediately. Xia Shunchuan contemplated a little bit and then made a quick decision. No matter if Kaiyang is inside that ship or not, even though he knows that many masters are gathering on the Sun Island today, he still wantonly invades. It means these demon dwellers should have some kind of crutch, otherwise, they wouldn't dare to take risks like this. Everyone nodded instantly. Even Xiang also nodded in agreement with Xia Shunchuan's suggestion. However, at this point of time, the divine craft demon god was piercing layers upon layers of devil clouds, gradually revealing itself and slowly drifting toward the sacred light mountain. The sunlight from the Sun Island appeared again, forming a dome of light to prevent the invasion. The dome of light was like layers upon layers of waves, creating a marvelous flower of light blossoming in the sky. It looked like a big bowl turning upside down, enclosing everyone inside. In this situation, no one dared to break through. Great Sun Holy Light Tianmu. This was a miraculous formation technique which had existed for hundreds of years on the Sun Island. In the legend, the Great Sun Holy Light Tianmu had been broken only 3 times. Even if God Realm warriors kept launching their strikes continually, consuming their powers for several days and nights, they still hardly broke down the Great Sun Holy Light Tianmu. However, the Great Sun Holy Light Tianmu was about to endure the 4th break. The bone ship like a club-shaped arrow burst out the black lights. Millions of flows of black lights producing the creak-creak noises, started condensing and creating a horrible, semi-round shaped sickle. As soon as the semi-round shaped sickle appeared, the sky and earth seemed to tremble for a moment. This terrifying sickle was pitch black with devilish icy light flashing around. This sickle launched a strike on the Great Sun Holy Light Tianmu violently. Under one blow of the sickle, the Great Sun Holy Light Tianmu, which hadn't been broken for hundreds of years, burst into numerous dots of light, creating billions of fireflies scattering everywhere that looked like snowflakes slowly floating in the sky above the Sun Island. The Great Sun Holy Light Tianmu twisted, revealing a crack where the bone ship was slowly getting through. Great Uncle Jiao. Xiang's body was agitated as he was very horrified. He couldn't help but shout out loud in fear. Xia Xinyan's face was aghast when she was blankly looking at a person flashing up on the bone ship. That person was Jiao Hanyi. That year, when Xiang and Xia Xinyan had just arrived in the Endless Sea, they had been ambushed and captured by a White Bones truth body of Demon King Ba Zun. It was because Jiao Hanyi had protected the two of them that he had been pulled into the demon area by the White Bones claws. The reason that Yang Tian Emperor had been detained in the heavenly demon wind god formation was that he had also wanted to save Tian Hanyi. Regretfully, Yang Tian Emperor not only hadn't succeeded but had also been caught in a tight encirclement. Jiao Hanyi, who had an important position in Xiang's heart, now showed up on that devilish divine craft demon god today. How he could be not scared? While he was still in inexplicable surprise, Jiao Hanyi jumped out of the demon ship, while his two hands had turned into huge, ferocious claws, using the full power strength to tear the crack on the great sun holy light Tianmu larger. As soon as Jiao Hanyi appeared, a horrendous flow of demon aura soared while his pupils flashed up with many black beams of light like a mysterious black hole of the universe, which seemed to be able to swallow all the light. The sunlight, which had formerly bloomed out of the great sun holy light Tianmu, now disappeared in his devilish pupils one by one. In just a short time, his two pupils had completely swallowed all the light from the great sun holy light Tianmu. Sky and earth became dark and gloomy. He is not human. Indeed, he only has a human body, but his soul has been refined for a long time. Yi Zhongfeng raised his head, looking at the person on the ship, then softly whined, "That person's body has been quenched, and the soul has been erased. It has become a body for Demon King Kaiyang to shelter. Demon King Kaiyang cannot truly appear in the endless sea, and thus, he has to borrow this person's body and use the consigned soul." He seemed to have been premeditated. Xiang's body violently shook. He stared at Jiao Hanyi without blinking. His face became calm, and his eyes turned to be insensitive. Ah! After an earth-shaking scream resounded from the divine craft demon god, a humanoid monster with thorns jutted out from the skin and a mouth filled with huge, long fangs ferociously appeared next to Jiao Hanyi. It seemed to use the consciousness to communicate with Jiao Hanyi. That monster with human form rolled its eyes, coldly casting a quick glance at the situation beneath them one more time, and kept roaring. Suddenly, many demon beasts appeared from the sea around the Sun Island and started attacking people crazily. Xiang was bewildered, looking at that monster in the human form as if he had just got hit by a fatal strike. A click resounded in his head, which was like some soul covenant had just been broken. Jiao Hanyi's sparkling black eyes was coldly looking down toward Xiang with a sign of sarcasm. Human imp. A mighty flow of consciousness broke through everything, striking toward Xiang's head. This flow of consciousness was so strong that it made his soul defense explode and also harmed other people surrounding at the same time. "Master, be careful." Yi Tianmo, Ya Meng, and Kobo were frightened, hurriedly used their souls to form a triple soul formations above Xiang's head. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Strange noises resounded from above Xiang's head. The bodies of the three people of Yi Tianmo's group were violently trembling as they were put forth all of their condensed soul powers to prevent the Demon King's evil consciousness from penetrating Xiang's mind. Ah! A mournful scream arose. Xiang's face changed tragically, couldn't help but look toward Linda. 7 holes on Linda's face were bleeding. Her beautiful eyes were sad and colorless, blood was trickling from the corners of her eyes. She stood there motionlessly as her soul had been destroyed. Xie Shenchuan held his head, screamed out in misery, moved forward to the place of Xie Xinyan, Yi Zhongfeng, Lin Yhe desperately. His facial 7 holes bled whenever he took one step forward while his soul was partly crushed. Before he could reach Xie Xinyan's place, his body fell onto the ground flabbily. His living aura slowly disappeared. It was unknown when Lin Yhe had put on her purple headscarf, which was emitting strange circles of light forming an umbrella-like cover protecting her and Ya Zhongfeng. Because Xie Xinyan was standing together with them, she had avoided the fatal danger. At this moment, Xie Xinyan's beautiful eyes were full of tears. She forcefully struggled, attempting to rush outside the protection range of the umbrella cover to drag Xie Shenchuan inside it, but Yi Zhongfeng and Ling Yhe had prevented her from getting out of the purple scarf's coverage. Yi Zhongfeng knew that if she left the protection range of the scarf, her soul would be smashed. The souls of more than 100 guards of the 3 gods sect in the manor had been destroyed in just a short time. Even though they still maintained their positions, their lives had been taken. A powerful flow of qi flew out from Linda's and Xie Shenchuan's bodies and then poured into Xiang's meridians. "No! Don't stop me!" Xiang cried out unconsciously, trying to tear down the clothes on his body to prevent Linda's qi from infiltrating into his body. However, there were 720 acupuncture points on his body. How could he cover them all with just 2 hands? In just a short time, Linda's chi had entered his body wholly. As Xia Shenchuan had the Sky Realm cultivation base, his chi moved much more slowly, but it couldn't delay much of the time. Swoosh swoosh. When Jiao Hanyi appeared in the Sun Island sky, the divine craft demon god also slowly pierced through layers upon layers of obstacles, moving toward the sacred light mountain, and then finally stopped amid the clouds above the mountain. I am Demon King Kaiyang. This fertile land is no longer yours. From now on, the endless sea belongs to us, the demon dwellers. You are just our captive livestock. On the sacred light mountain peak, the emotionless voice of Jiao Han Yi reverberated to every corner of the Sun Island. As soon as this voice ceased, Demon King Kaiyang stomped on the spot in the void and slowly moved toward Shiyang's place, then said, "The demonic Sound Clan is one of the big 4 clans of the Dark Dwellers. Your 3 great Dark Kings will be here in a few days. As the demonic Sound Clan is one of Dark Dwellers' branches, you are entitled to use this fertile land. As long as you nod your heads, this vast sea will belong to you." While he was talking, numerous ferocious demon dwellers stormed out from the bone ship. A horrendous aura blanketed the sacred light mountain, started attacking God Realm warriors and slaughtering those with lower cultivation base. "This is not our homeland," Yi Tianmo raised his head, looking at Demon King Kaiyang who was approaching, then said, "We want to go back to our ancestral land. I don't want to be involved in the dispute here. We will depart today." 3 days ago, the Wings race on the Snow Dragon Island has officially returned to the 8 demon tribes. Thousands of pagans of the demonic Sound Clan and Wings race also get along well with us on the island. Even Daishan and Yuru have submitted, and you 3 still want to repel? Demon King Kaiyang calmly said, "I really like the 3 little boys ye see you by, Yag, and Ka Tuor. Avi Dark King has said that if you 3 submit, he will treat your descendants well in the future. What do you think?" Yi Tianmo, Ya Meng, and Kobo trembled violently. It looked like all of their powers had been drained. His face was getting more ashen. Yi Siyubai, Yag, and Ka Tuor were their fatal point. Besides that, the entire demonic Sound Clan and Wings race have been in restraint. What else should they do? Shiyang now looked like a wild beast, raising his head resentfully, staring at Demon King Kaiyang, breathing heavily. Linda had died. Jiao Hanyi had been refined to dead. The Snow Dragon Island had fallen into the opponent's hands. This world suddenly turned upside down in a short moment. Demon King Kaiyang had also destroyed his good future. Chapter 333, A Big Defeat. Chapter 333, A Big Defeat. "Master, we are sorry." The 3 people of Yi Tianmo's group kneeled down, bowing their heads in front of Shiyang with full of grief. Shiyang's face was gloomy. He nodded and said insensitively, "I understand." The 3 of them bowed their heads, didn't dare to look at Shiyang. Their eyes were downcast with a complicated look. "Master," Demon King Kaiyang sneered ruthlessly as his body suddenly appeared above the manor. The face, which had originally belonged to Jiao Hanyi, was now overwhelmed with treacherousness. "Is this lowly human worthy of humbling yourselves to call him master? Have you lost your self-esteem because living in the abandoned land for too long?" Yi Tianmo's shoulders suddenly trembled while his eyes were full of resentment, but he didn't dare to have any reactions. "You can call Abi Death King, Yellow Spring Death King, the Dark Sky Death King master. This human brat is not worthy. I will help you eradicate him." Kaiyang was stomping forward in the air, producing the cold, indifferent sound. As soon as he launched a blow, a huge palm suddenly appeared amid the void, looked like a mountain slowly pressing down, covering the whole manor. "Don't!" The 3 people of Yi Tianmo's group couldn't help but cry out loud, wanted to stop the oppression from this huge palm. "Go!" Yi Zhongfeng suddenly shouted. Numerous gold lights shot out from his body. In the middle of the glowing gold light, plenty gold leaves flew out from his sleeves, gathered and formed a gold crystal chunk above his head. This crystal chunk then shot out countless sparkling lights covering the 3 of them and Shiyang. Shiyang was about to say something but immediately felt a burst of dizziness as the pain was spreading all over his body. Even his sea of consciousness also seemed to become gold. Space was twisted strangely. A flow of power shortly burst out, breaking through layers of constraints. As soon as the glowing gold light flashed up, the four people of Shiyang, Yi Zhongfeng, Lin Yhe, and Xia Xinyan miraculously disappeared out of the manor without leaving any trace. Teleportation treasure. A strange beam of light flared up in Demon King Kaiyang's eyes. A few seconds later, the black light in his eyes brightened, his eyes seemed to turn into a miraculous projection which started to show the scene within the range of 1,000 miles around the Sun Island. With Kaiyang as the center, a significant flow of soul consciousness quickly spread out at the same time. Just in a few seconds, the huge soul consciousness of Demon King Kaiyang had covered the radius of 1,000 miles and was still expanding. In Kaiyang's eyes, the scenes of the islands kept changing. Just standing here, he could see the scenes from 1,000 miles away, observing every commotion in front of his eyes. Found them. Demon King Kaiyang suddenly revealed a silent smile while his left eyes glinted with a gold beam of light, in which a deserted island appeared. Demon King Kaiyang beamed a sneer, stretched his hand out in the air. The void in front of him suddenly rippled like a stone falling into the water, creating many rippling waves. While those ripples were spreading, the void in front of his eyes slowly projected an image of a small island. On that island, four people of Yi Zhongfeng's group and Shiyang were still in shock, gasping for breath. Demon King Kaiyang's left hand suddenly reached out, touching the image of the island in front of him. On the island, when Shiyang, Yi Zhongfeng, Lin Yhe, and Xia Xinyan had just stabilized their bodies, they saw many groups of clouds gathering, forming a huge cloud above their heads. A giant hand, which could cover the entire sky, abruptly emerged and snatched the island below. The island was not very big, probably not as big as 1/5 of the Sun Island. However, it was still larger than the Godstone Square where Shiyang had stayed previously. However, the island looked very tiny under that giant hand. Shiyang and his fellows felt that there was no slight chance for them to escape. "Let me handle it this time." Lin Yhe screamed out loud, jumped up as fast as electricity, grabbed Yhe Zhongfeng's sleeve and forcefully pulled forward. Torrential energy fluctuations spread out from Lin Yaqi's body. Under those waves of energy, Yi Zhongfeng's sleeves glittered with gold lights, and flying gold leaves appeared again above the four heads before condensing into a crystal chunk as he continued to use the teleportation treasure. In the middle of the glowing gold light, the four people of Shiyang's group disappeared again. Boom, boom, boom. The giant hand jutted out from the groups of clouds, forcefully pressing down. The entire island was razed to the ground. 1,000-meter-high mountains were also flattened by that giant hand. On the Sun Island, the three people of Yi Tianmo's group frighteningly looked at Demon King Kaiyang, also blankly watched the scene which was resized countless times and appeared in the middle of ripples in front of Kaiyang. As the three of them saw the entire island being razed right after Kaiyang's giant hand had pressed down, they felt terrified at heart. The three people of Yi Tianmo's group knew that the scene projected amid the ripples in front of them was absolutely not an illusion, but it was really happening now. After Demon King Kaiyang had flattened the island, he suddenly knitted his eyebrows as the scene in his eyes changed again. His tremendous soul consciousness continued expanding in all directions and had covered the range of more than 1,000 miles already. A long time later, Demon King Kaiyang retrieved his soul consciousness. The strange scene in his eyes gradually disappeared. He knitted his brows, contemplated for a while before speaking with a cold voice, "Is that little rascal one of the Yang family?" The three people of Yi Tianmo's group kept silent, didn't utter a word. "Even if you don't tell me, I can still figure it out." Kaiyang coldly snorted and said. As soon as he had finished, he launched a blow in the void, and a silhouette suddenly emerged. It was Li Fu. Kaiyang didn't question him either. His eyes, like two black holes, coldly looked at Li Fu, and he then opened his mouth, spat out a black ray of light. That black ray instantly hit Li Fu, piercing through his brain like a worm gnawing his sea of consciousness. Not long after that, his facial 7 holes were all bleeding, the vitality of his body was gradually gone. He finally flabbily fell to the ground and died. Swoosh! A wisp of light flew out from Li Fu's brain. Kaiyang then quickly opened his mouth to catch and swallow it. His lips slightly curled as his eyes sparked with black dots of light. He had known everything about Shi Yang like the back of his hand. The remnant of the Yang family. Kai Yang ridiculed, shook his head, and then said faintly, Bozun will probably take actions soon. The Yang family will completely disappear. After having finished his words, Kai Yang suddenly turned toward the sacred light mountain and let out a scream. A massive flow of consciousness dashed straight to everyone's brain on the sacred light mountain peak. Ma Chi-dun, the little rascal who has almost destroyed your soul, is running away to the east. He is now 1,000 far away. If you start now, you still can catch him. On the mountain peak, the horrified body of Ma Chi-dun of the Dragon Horn clan suddenly trembled while his eyes were flooded with blunt, murderous craziness. He let go the Queen of Sky and the King of Earth and then looked toward Kai Yang from a distance. Leave this place to me, Kai Yang smiled and said, as long as Cao Qiudao and Yang Yitian don't come here, this entire area will be under our control. That little rascal had returned from the chasm battlefield, bringing some strange secret treasure that can break the seal. If we let him give that secret treasure to Yang Tian Emperor, I am afraid that there will be a lot of troubles later. You should go now. Ma Chi-dun cruelly sneered and instantly turned into a devil beam of light, piercing straight into layers of devil clouds, crazily stormed toward the east. Kai Yang turned his head, looking at the three people of Yi Tianmo's group, and then coldly said, You don't need to join this battle. I'll give you guys a few days to pull yourselves together. Wait until this battle ends, I will bring you to meet the three Dark Kings. They have something to tell you. After having finished his words, Kai Yang didn't say anything further, walking step by step toward the sacred light mountain peak. His footsteps were slow, but every of his steps crossed layers of space. Thus, after only 5 steps, he was already at the mountain peak. After Kai Yang had appeared on the sacred light mountain peak, he casually swung his 2 fists in the air. After one punch had been released, countless lightning flashed up in the sky. Millions of long, black lightning shot out from the endless darkness. In the middle of the black lightning, 10 big black lightning pythons, more than 1,000 meters long, slowly emerged. Each of the big black lightning pythons contained the earth-shaking waves of energy. As soon as those 10 big black lightning pythons appeared, they immediately wrapped around the sacred light mountain of the Three Gods sect. The majestic formation technique outside the sacred light mountain kept cracking. The 10,000-meter-high mountain, which was entangled by 10 big black lightning pythons, started shaking and crumbling. Numerous small, black streaks of lightning were flying around the mountain, splitting into millions of tiny pythons, eroded everything on the mountain, except for rocks and stones. Only after a few seconds, tens of thousands of ancient trees, countless plants and flowers, insects, and beasts on the mountain had completely been eaten by those little pythons. The lush and verdant sacred light mountain now turned into a deserted mountain without vitality. A few disciples of the Three Gods sect on the mountain flank had failed to survive as well. Those little pythons had gnawed them clean without leaving even one single bone. 10 big pythons continued entangling the sacred light mountain, making horrifying howls, and putting their efforts together to crush down the mountain. Under the pulls and twists of those pythons, the sacred light mountain was finally uprooted, flew out of the earth, then collapsed into the sea. High-class warriors, who came for the summit on the mountain peak, were all terrified witnessing the collapse of the mountain. They also felt freezing at heart seeing Kai Yang clasping his hands behind his back, standing in the air. The giant demon kingship was still hovering silently in the air as before. The monster in human form with jagged thorns covering all over its body faced up the sky, growling and roaring as if it was calling for something. Numerous huge demon beasts suddenly appeared from the sky and the sea, crazily stormed toward the Sun Island like a flock of locusts, wiped out all the creatures on the island, devoured and tore panic warriors apart, swallowing even their bones. These demon beasts were chewing the bones of the human warriors and continued searching for other targets everywhere at the same time. The massive panic spread over the entire Sun Island. Regardless of whether the disciples of the Three Gods sect or other warriors who came for the summit, they were all scared to death. In this crazy invasion of the demon dwellers, a lot of people couldn't perform even 1/3 of their strength. Under the besiege and slaughter of the demon beast, those warriors have been ravened into pieces. On the Sun Island, blood flowed into rivers, corpses scattered everywhere. The island became a hell on earth. At this time, many exotic dazzling balls of light constantly exploded. Those who had teleportation treasure desperately used them to escape from this place without caring if their body would be broken or not. On the sacred light mountain, Cao Jilan's face was ashen. She dragged Manjiyu along and disappeared into the silver light in the sky. At the foot of the mountain, Jiyu Linglung was urging the god sword which was blooming out blazing lights, but she then found a ferocious beast plunging down from the sky. Riding that demon beast, a third sky of the Nirvana realm demon dweller was sneering cruelly, holding a black lance. He was scratching the void, dashing toward her. Swoosh! After the black lance stabbed through Jiyu Linglung's exquisite body, that demon beast immediately rushed over. Its iron-like claws grasped Jiyu Linglung's head. Puff! Jiyu Linglung's head burst. Blood and brain spurted out together. In that blood splash, the light covering Jiyu Linglung's entire body gradually disappeared, and she spat a mouthful blood. In the twisted space, her body then disappeared mysteriously. And it was going on like that on the Sun Island. The vast majority of the warriors who didn't have the teleportation treasure nor other secret treasures could only madly rushed outside the island with the hope that they could jump into the sea to escape. Unfortunately, these warriors had become the demon beast's food before they could jump into the water. On the flank of the sacred light mountain, sparkling, blinding balls of light continually appeared. In the middle of those lights, Tang Yuannan disappeared without a trace, as well as Qingming, the Queen of Sky, the King of Earth, Jiyushao, and Yuqin. Total 6 God Realm warriors, who had come here for the summit, had to run away when facing the intimidation of Demon King Kaiyang, Demon Master Xieyang, Demon Emperor Cinder, Demon Master Arig, and several others demon dwellers who had just entered the God Realm. With the God Realm warriors' escape, it meant the fight on the Sun Island had come to an end. Other people, who were still on the Sun Island, didn't have any secret treasures or secret transport technique, and thus they had no way to escape nor any hope to survive. It was unknown when Kaiyang had been standing again on the prow of the Demon King ship, looking down at the island. His eyes were like 2 black holes displaying no emotions. The 2 demon masters, Cindy and Arig, who were under the command of Kaiyang, had also flown up together to the Demon King ship after the sacred light mountain had collapsed. These 2 demon masters belonged to the Sharp Tail tribe, dragging a 5-meter-long tail behind. That tail was full of sharp thorns like fierce fangs, giving people an undefeatable feeling. 6 God Realm warriors have finally fled out of the island. Cindy walked over and talked to Kaiyang with a hoarse voice. "Don't bother about them." Kaiyang coldly looked at the island and said, "They will definitely go to find Cao Qiudao and Yang Yitian, regather their strength for the next fight. Cao Qiudao and Yang Yitian will show up on the next time. That is when we have the real battle." Cindy and Arig slightly bent down and nodded, indicating that they had understood. "Clear all the human beings in this sea. Use their corpses to build the Corpse Soul Bridge. Millions of human corpses here are enough to finish the Corpse Soul Bridge. At that time, bosons and my real bodies can really come to the endless sea. Then, even Cao Qiudao and Yang Yitian cannot stop us." Kaiyang looked down at the miserable creatures beneath, said ruthlessly, "You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,